This is Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily with Andrew Hustler Paterson and Michael Remis.
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Let's do this. Another afternoon edition of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily for you. Great to see everyone with us live on YouTube right now, and for everybody picking up Winnipeg Sports Talk on their favorite podcast feed. Thanks so much for doing it. Great to have you making us a part of your day. And if you do have the opportunity at any point to, slide down there, give us a 5-star rating, and maybe add a little comment in for your boys at Winnipeg Sports Talk, it certainly is appreciated. For those of you on YouTube, make sure you hit the subscribe button, and you can always hit that bell as well, so you'll get notified when we are live. Monday to Friday, the schedule is 1 o'clock. Occasionally, there's some extra shows that pop up depending on what's going on, or even early starts, so always a good thing to keep in mind to make sure you know when we are going live. We got a real fun show today. We are going to be joined by, I think, the guy that's given the most excitement to Winnipeg Jet fans. He did it through one interview, and of course being acquired in trade by Kevin Cheveldayoff from the Vancouver Canucks. We're going to have our first visit with Nate Schmidt of the Winnipeg Jets. We'll do that a little bit later on. Ken Wiebe is also going to take a quick time out from his Manitoba golf tour, which has been nonstop, it seems, for the last little while. We'll check in with Ken Wiebe. And before we do all of that, Darrin is going to join us first up to get the latest on the Winnipeg Blue Bombers as they prepare for the Toronto Argonauts on Saturday afternoon at 3 p.m. Before we get going, I want to give a big shout out to our family of sponsors helping us make this happen for you every day here on Winnipeg Sports Talk, along with our newest sponsor, Canadian Club, official sponsor of the Bombers. You can get your CC all around the IG field when you're at the game, along with their other great products, as well as Royal Sports, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Paramount Services Limited, Not Autocorp, Boston Pizza, Little Brown Jug Brewing, Breezy Bend, Coolbet Canada, and Assiniboia Downs, where I'm very pleased to report to you the Huss had his biggest win of the season last night at the track. A great night overall. I don't blame any of you for not following the picks at this point. It really has become a head-to-head competition between myself and Michael Remis. But maybe after last night, I certainly should have cut the gap a little bit. We'll see where we're at heading down the stretch. But it was a lot of fun night. We will get to some Assiniboia Downs picks for tonight's night of live racing a little bit later on. But let's get Michael Remis in here and get the party started before we welcome in Darrin Bauming to talk Bombers Argos in a few minutes. Remo, what's going on? How are you this fine Wednesday afternoon?
Feeling good, us. It is a weird time of the sports calendar. NHL news, not much there. The signing have all happened. We do have CFL, NFL preseason starting up. Major League Baseball. I got a couple notes on baseball for the end of the show. Some funny stuff. But if you're a Blue Jays fan, I'm sure you're very upset about the injury to George Springer that was announced yesterday.
Yeah, well, you know what? Let's start with the Jays because we're going to have plenty of CFL talk and we'll have lots of hockey talk. And again, there's not a lot breaking right now. I mean, this is the time when a lot of GMs are, spending a much shorter time at their summer residences. I certainly hope Kevin Cheveldayoff's out with his line in the water somewhere, as we talked about, the job he's done, and pretty much everything's ready to go for the Winnipeg Jets right now. I mean, I'm sure there'll be, maybe a couple more depth signings for the hockey club, but the roster pretty much set. And there was a lot of pressure on Chevy going into the summer. And, I think, we've talked about it plenty. There's been some big additions, including one of the guys that'll join us later on today on this program, and Nate Schmidt. that has cranked up the excitement and enthusiasm levels, I think, of Winnipeg Jet fans. Incredibly excited to not only get back to Canada Life Center to watch the Winnipeg Jets, but, sincerely optimistic and realistically optimistic about what this team might be capable of with these offseason additions. But yeah, Remo, it was baseball last night. And first and foremost, did you watch the game? Were you able to find it? Because it wasn't on Sportsnet last night. Luckily, we are YouTube guys. I'm very familiar with YouTube. If you're not already, you should be, because that is where the game was last night. And for Blue Jays fans, or Blue Jays bettors that maybe fired it up on their TV or their phone or their iPad, it was an ugly, ugly outing for the Jays. And, I realized Alek Manoah had really sort of spoiled Jays fans with the performances that he's had so far. Just been a phenomenal rookie year. A night like that was sort of bound to happen, but it came at a bad time, as this team really needs wins as they continue to push for a wild card spot in the AL.
Yeah, what's going on? I thought the Nationals, they gave up. I thought they traded away all their star players. What are they doing? Put up how many on the Jays yesterday? It was like 14? Dozen? Yeah, it's not going to get it done. I know the Jays, I keep seeing they're in a real tight spot in terms of, what winning percentage they need to play the rest of the year to make the playoffs. I see Boston not, maybe not been their best since July, but it doesn't matter. They're at a tight spot, and Springer injury hurts Manoah. A young pitcher, sometimes they come in, Huss, and then they dominate right away, and then people start to figure them out. So we'll see if he can, continue his play aside from the game yesterday. But that's a tough one. You can't be dropping games to the Nats, Huss, after they traded away a bunch of their guys at the deadline.
Yeah, exactly. And the Jays and Nats will tee off. They'll get first pitch going at about 3:05 this afternoon local time. And I will tell you, I know many of you may have checked in with us on the Lock Shop, as Dustin Nielsen and I just finished up the show before we went live here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. We do have another pretty juicy Lock Shop partner parlay, which has the Jays this afternoon, the Red Sox minus half a run in the first 5 innings tonight against the Yankees, and then the Alouettes money line coming up against the Stamps and their rookie quarterback on the weekend. We got that boosted up to plus 675. So if you are a cool bettor, you can get over there. It's right on the main page. Lock Shop boosted odds partner parlay. It's at plus 675. The Elks screwed it last week from going 3 in a row, but anyways, just putting that out there now because you need to get it in before 3 p.m. if you do want it to be live before the Blue Jays game starts. And as always, if you haven't bet at CoolBet before, use the promo code WST and you get a 100% bonus on your first deposit up to $200. The baseball situation is interesting, Reem, right now. And I should also give a hat tip to the Winnipeg Goldeyes, who, were back on the road. Tough start last night, losing the opening of their series to the Gary Showstore Railcats. But the Fish back at home, playing a number of home games this week. So for anyone that hasn't been out to the ballpark, if you've got your QR code over your card, the boys of summer are back, and it's always an incredible evening in downtown Winnipeg when you're out there eating, drinking, and enjoying the ballpark and Goldeyes baseball.
Yeah, of course, some of the best views, I think, in the city. Always nice sitting wherever in the ballpark, doesn't matter what seat. I saw Jamarcus Harjick of the Bombers took his family out for a game. He posted that one on Twitter. So I think great place for families, and nice to see them back at home and having success.
Exactly. So we'll head to that a little bit later on. Maybe even tonight. Although we're now in heavy fantasy football season, Remis, and I know you are not as much a full season fantasy guy, that the attention span, the commitment to your team just hasn't been there in the past. You've turned into a DFS lifer.
Yes.
I, however, still am in a number of leagues, and tonight, maybe my favorite one is the Dynasty Auction. We started off a little early, rookie draft and all that, so sometimes it seems like it's getting later and later every year that I really do the dive headfirst into the National Football League. But that time has come. We've just had week 1 of the preseason, and there is lots of NFL news happening pretty much every day around the league. But as we all know, the biggest and most important thing right now, Remis, when you're getting ready for your fantasy season or you're making bets for the year, is to try to decipher what is smoke and what is fire right now. And I'll tell you what, one of the most interesting things, and I'm seeing a report on ESPN that, we heard last week that Dak Prescott was going back in for, I believe, another MRI. Dak Prescott might not play in the preseason. He, of course, was injured in the majority of last season. There's always so much excitement and exuberance about the Dallas Cowboys because they are such a public team. They've got such a massive fan base going in. And, to their credit, they've got a lot of, top flight football players on their team. But, man, between injuries and the fact that Mike McCarthy is on the sidelines, I know Packer fans will probably back me on this. Man, I don't have a lot of hope for the Dallas Cowboys, and I'm certainly not expecting them, like some people are annually, to be the team that's going to be representing the NFC in the Super Bowl.
Yeah, and if it's fantasy season, I normally say, have your draft as close to the season as possible because you never know with injuries, but I guess you're going a bit early. If you're paying attention to preseason, I think player usage is, in some key, position battles, that's something to watch for. We did have a question yesterday, Huss, on Twitter. Someone was asking, you mentioned you're on basically every fantasy website. If someone is looking to start up a league or join one, what's the best site? And my answer was, the default picks right now, ESPN, Yahoo. I think for your basic standard fantasy league, I think those are your best bets. Pick which one you prefer. They're pretty similar, but after that, I don't know too. I'm on CBS. You have to pay for CBS. I think you're on a CBS league too. You mentioned
I'm in a CBS hockey league, which has been great. I can't believe it. I think I'm in 6 or 7 leagues, and like 2 of them are on the same platform.
That's crazy.
It's a pain in the ass. One's at NFL.com, one's at Yahoo, 2 are at ESPN. The Dynasty League, if you're with a bunch of guys and you're trying to expand your league, to maybe have some keepers, to expand into a rookie draft, to have multi-year contracts. Real Time Digital Sports is a which originally was Fanball back in the day. They got bought, and for a couple of years the site wasn't that good. It actually now is really good. I'm not sure what the costs are. The commissioner handles that, but I will tell you that for larger leagues, long term it was. And then the other league that's sort of really in depth that I'm in is one that includes a few keepers as well as individual defensive players.
Oh my God.
The IDP League is we host it at a site called Sleeper, and it's actually quite good. The Sleeper, utilizing it on your phone or on your tablet's good. I've just kind of started using it on the PC a little bit, so I won't give it a full endorsement, but it certainly does seem to be very thorough, can handle all the things that you may or may not want to do with your league. Because that's the one thing, Remis, if you're a commissioner and you say, well, we don't want to just do it standard, we want to do this or that and add to it, you better make sure that your site can handle it, because the last thing you want to be doing as a commissioner is doing all sorts of manual changes on a weekly basis. That will be the downfall of your league. So start it off simple. But if you do want to expand it, make sure that the place that you're hosting it, and to be honest, it'll be worth it paying a little extra for a good host if you want to put together a league that you're planning on doing it for the next 10, 15 years with your buddies, going year after year after year.
Yeah, I'll agree with that. And I've been a commissioner of fantasy leagues for, 20 plus years here now, Huss. But I agree. Make sure your site can handle the things. I don't like keeper leagues. The ones that have been terrible, and they have too many keepers. I think you need to keep like 2, maybe 3 guys max. Like some of these keeper leagues I'm in are more like dynasty leagues where you're keeping like half your team, which I think is stupid. And I also, as you mentioned before, I'm not doing too much season long fantasy football because I hate the head-to-head format. I think it's stupid. And
too many L's.
Yeah, too many L's because of the randomizer called the schedule, not because of your team, what their performance. And that is one thing I don't like about head-to-head. That's why I've gone to kind of daily, but I know it's extremely popular, and that is the standard game mode. So I'm aware of it.
With all the leagues that we've set up in fantasy that are head-to-head based, we've all say there's 12 guys in the league and everyone's putting in $100. Like we've always made the total points for the regular season a significant prize. So I mean, even if you get screwed by the schedule, you're the best team all year long, you'll be getting say $500, and it's $500 for the team that wins and $200 for the runner-up or something like that. There's ways to handle that. But listen, there's tons of content out there right now. I'll give a plug to my buddy Dustin Nielsen, who of course will be calling. I think he told me he's calling now the next 5 Winnipeg Blue Bombers games. So hopefully that'll be some good luck for the Bombers. They can get on a roll with Dusty in the booth. He is the biggest fantasy football freak that I know. And I think I told you this, Reem, but Andy McNamara's United League, well, we talked about it with him earlier on the program. I don't know how he's doing it. I mean, I guess his AGM is going to be busy this week because it's a 3-day draft with 32 teams and 53 players on the roster. Literally every position in football will be represented. I can't even wrap my head around it. If you're starting a league, I would certainly not suggest to go that route. But, we've been doing this for 20 years, maybe more. And it never fails to amaze me how big this industry is and how many people are involved. And I've had some friends that have said, oh, I know you guys are all in fantasy, but I don't know enough. I don't want to get in. You will pick more up from being as a casual NFL fan, from being in your fantasy league, just checking how your team's doing and having a little bit more interest in some of the other teams other than your favorite team. I can't recommend it enough. It is so much fun, especially if you're in with a good group of guys. But Reem, it does all start with the commissioner. If you're starting a new league, make sure you have somebody that is responsible and maybe most importantly has integrity when you're setting up the league, because there have been some horror stories of friendships that have gone down south because of a sketchy trade made before your league's trade deadline, even if it is just fantasy football.
Yeah, I agree. And there's no one who's got more integrity than me, which is why I'm such a great commissioner.
It's true. And a great CTO.
Yeah, so I agree with that. You don't want to be doing anything sketchy. It's kind of fun getting into these discussions. I used to like the in-person draft, bring food. I used to say you needed like plugs and Wi-Fi, and good food were the essentials. And of course, places to sit and set up, good essentials for an in-person draft. I don't know, are in-person drafts a thing right now? I know the rules are relaxed.
It depends if you're still paralyzed with fear because of COVID, or you actually go out and do things. I mean, I guess it's all a personal decision. If I wasn't vaccinated, I probably wouldn't be going into big crowds, but it seems like many of those people are the ones that care the least. So again, I don't know.
Yeah,
I would love to do an in-person draft. The one thing is, of course, with these platforms, and this is another thing for beginners that are thinking, oh, this is going to be so overwhelming. The amount of information and how easy these sites make it for you is, honestly, take a swing, take the plunge into it. I think that 95 out of 100 people that do it will be really happy they did, and you won't be overwhelmed. You'll learn a lot. It'll make it a lot more fun. So as a longtime fantasy player, I certainly suggest it, and you can do it for all sorts of sports, but NFL is the best. Just, there's one set of games on the weekend. You set your lineup once, you watch the games, and you get back at it. Hey, I want to give a shout out to some folks in the chat. We've got a great crew. First off, our guy Dallas Pauls. And remote, Dallas has been a huge supporter of ours, certainly dating back to the Pembina days, right from the get-go here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. And Dallas is often with us here, but a special congratulations. I just found out on Twitter that our guy Dallas and his lovely fiance tying the knot this weekend. So a hearty congratulations from the Winnipeg Sports Talk crew. And Dallas enjoys his 1919, so I have a feeling the reception, there might be a few cold ones going down with a very happy group celebrating one of Winnipeg Sports Talk's own tying the knot.
Yeah, and I know he's always tweeting at us, visiting all the different sponsors here. DQ, Little Brown Jug always tweets, says Boston Pizza. So thank you, for supporting our sponsors. And yeah, definitely congratulations.
There we got Wrench Doozers in here, fired up to see Nate Schmidt. We said, need to make a sign. Nate Schmidt, CEO, Chief Energy Officer of the Electric Factory. And he is a bit of an electric factory. I'm very, very excited to have Nate Schmidt on the program. And of course, Ken Wiebe. There's a lot of things that we need to get to with Weber since the last time he spoke with us. So Ken's going to join us after we have Nate Schmidt on the program. And we're going to start it off with the conversation about the Winnipeg Blue Bombers and the upcoming game against the Toronto Argonauts. Remo, just before, and I know we're going to touch on this with DB coming up in a second, nice to see Darvin Adams back on the practice field. Still waiting to see what the story with Andrew Harris is and when he might be a participant in practice, never mind a game. But I'll tell you what, going into Toronto after the way the Argo defense played quite well against Winnipeg, certainly shutting down that running game for the most part, the potential addition of Darvin Adams, not saying he's for sure going to be in, would be a real nice boost for the Bombers as they go to TO for their first road game of the year.
For sure. If you can add another weapon like that, I think that is big for them. Although, I mean, Kenny Lawler, I think, has looked awesome, grabbing balls all over the place. Nick Dembski with the catch and run, and Rashid Bailey catching that TD on play action. Those guys have looked very solid. But Darvin Adams, we know, very good receiver in the past, so you'd like to see him back on the field. As for Andrew Harris, Ed Tate was saying he got a lot of work today, heaviest workload he's had in a long time, but still with the second team and Brady Oliveira with the one. So sounds like Harris, he's getting more action, but he's probably not playing this weekend.
All right. Oh, by the way, special welcome to Mitch Jansen, who did drop in the most lucrative super chat, I believe, in Winnipeg Sports Talk history. Thank you again for that, Mitch. You did not need to do that. I would have still stumped for you in a Twitter amnesty with Gary Lawless. But it was great to see you freed after 10 years in the penalty box of one Gary Lawless to be back out there. So it was great. And I know you were checking out the races last night as well. Hey, Andrew Meyer, regular listener from Philly here. You guys are terrific. What's up, Andrew? Thanks so much for finding us. It's great to have you here. Haven't been to Philly many times. Had a great time there when we were there for the draft. Geez, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. Definitely want to come back and love that sports complex we got there. We just went to a ballpark, but we got to see the link. I got the arena there too. A hell of a sports town Philly is. Great to have you here with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. And Turd Ferguson was saying, Hustler, why don't you be talking about Turd Ferguson? I'm not exactly sure what I'm supposed to talk about, Turd, but if you have any good takes, feel free. Hit them with us in the chat, or at any point you can hit me up on Twitter at Hustlerama, Michael Remis at MRemis, and always on all platforms, Winnipeg Sports Talk is available at Sports Talk WPG. All right, we're going to talk to DB, Darrin Bauming of Bonfire Sports coming up in just a second. But don't worry, I see the questions about Svechnikov and more. We'll save that for Kenny Wiebe a little bit later on. Bombers not home this week, but they'll be back home next week, taking on the Calgary Stampeders on Sunday night. Of course, Canadian Club, a great sponsor of Winnipeg Sports Talk, and also part of the official spirit team of the Winnipeg Blue Bombers with Beam Suntory. And it's not just CC. They've got the Sauza Tequila, the Brugal Rum, the Jim Beam Stillhouse. It's all there. If you're over beer, looking for a cocktail at the Bomber game or at your local liquor store, get the best in the biz, Canadian Club since 1858. And we will have another CC I Love Rye package to give away. We'll do that next Friday heading into the Calgary game. And then our big special prize we are saving, we'll do it kind of in conjunction with some social media promotion for Banjo Bowl week and give that sucker away. We'll tell you exactly what it is coming up in the weeks to come. Before Banjo Bowl weekend. So big thanks to Canadian Club and the entire Beam Suntory team. James, KT, great to have you all on board. And if you're looking for a cocktail tonight, may I suggest the great taste of Canadian Club. I go ginger ale. Some people like Coke. I think you've seen the video. CC and ginger, hard to beat that. Royal Sports, speaking of Nate Schmidt coming on, people getting ready to maybe invest in an 88 jersey. You can do that over at Royal Sports. An incredible selection of Winnipeg Jets merchandise, jerseys, pros, replicas. They've got it all, not to mention bomber gear and licensed merchandise from all of the top pro leagues in North America and really around the world if you include soccer. And this is my favorite time with all the new NFL gear coming in, getting ready for NFL kickoff in just a few weeks as well. While you're there, check out the camping section. They're a Yeti dealer, some amazing Yeti products that they've got just coming in. See a picture there with the coolers and whatnot on the screen that Remis is dropping, as well as bikes. Bikes have been hard to come by this year. They're still getting in stock. If you're looking for a great whip two-wheeler, Royal Sports has it as well. 650 Rally and EK and 750 Pembina Highway. And of course, really a Winnipeg Sports Talk legend, both in the chat and as a sponsor with us from day one. Our pal Nick, his wife Nikki, and the Nick and Nikki DQ group with 4 locations here in Winnipeg and southern Manitoba, just south of the city in Niverville, the DQ Northgate, the DQ Polo Park, and the Dairy Queen on St. Anne's. If you were thinking about a cold treat or maybe a great burger, chicken, it got it all at Dairy Queen. Pop by and tell them the gang at Winnipeg Sports Talk sent you. And if you're thinking about an event that a Dairy Queen cake would make you the hero to bring it to DQ Manitoba on Instagram. You can order in advance and pop by quick and easy, pick it up and be the hero when you pop by that next gathering. Big thanks to Nick and Nikki for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk and Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. All right, Nate Schmidt of the Winnipeg Jets is coming up in a few minutes. First, though, let's hook up with Darrin Bauming. And DB joined us just before we went on the air because there's going to be a press conference right now when we'd planned to talk to him, getting at the upcoming Bomber-Argo rematch Saturday afternoon. And again, his Game Day Winnipeg show with Chris Walby that'll be available on the Bonfire Sports YouTube channel earlier on Saturday before the game for your listening pleasure. So let's hook up with Darrin Bauming on Winnipeg Sports Talk.
Sorry, I screwed something up. One sec.
Oh, okay. We're just getting a DB. I did see Matt Kalish going, return visit from the head of DraftKings.
Something happened with my file. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I had a quick issue. We'll see if this is the right one. Hold on.
Yes. So
where's the WST audio gremlin in chat?
Yeah. Is the audio gremlin here right now? And while Mitch, thank you for pointing that out. 9 spots left in the DraftKings CFL contest for this week. I had a great first week, did not have a great second week. So I'll be looking for a comeback coming up. But if you haven't played so far, get to DraftKings. You can hit me up at Hustlerama. We'll make sure you get an invite, or just find the Winnipeg Sports Talk DraftKings League. Join it. It's in the lobby there. 9 spots left. We'll get to 40. Top 5 paid. And now that we've got a little bit more information about this, now we've got a little bit more information about this season and these teams, I have a feeling selecting and picking our players might be a little bit easier. For me, looking at this Bomber game, I talked about actually my pick. I'll tell you right now, if you missed the lock shop, I'm going with the over on this game. I think there's been a bit of a overreaction to the low scores earlier on in the season. I think the defenses have been in more advantageous situations without the offense getting an opportunity to play together through the preseason. So, putting all that together, I do think that we're going to see some more points. The Bomber-Argo game opened at 41.5. It's 42 right now. Laying 5 points on the road is tough. I mean, I still have confidence the Bombers can come out of there with a win. But I'm feeling that the over seems to be the pick. So anyways, we'll do that more in the cool bet lines a little bit later on. Great to see everyone. Oh, Nick is here. What's up, Nick? Damn right, you're a legend in the WST. All right, we are ready to go with Darrin Bauming. Caught up with him just before we went on air, getting ready for the Bombers and Argos on Saturday, and another edition of Game Day Winnipeg with Bauming and Walby. DB, what's going on? Great to talk to you again.
Hustler, always good to be with you. We've got a rematch this early in the season, a home and home. It's a rarity in CFL scheduling, but should lead to an interesting matchup on Saturday.
Yeah, a lot of home and homes, it seems, on the schedule this year for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Of course, the big one coming up in a few weeks with the Saskatchewan Roughriders promises to be a big matchup considering the starts of these two teams. We'll get to the rest of the CFL in a minute, though. First off, before we talk about the game on Saturday, thoughts on a 2-0 start and a great defensive performance really through 8 quarters up until this point, allowing only 13 points in 2 CFL games. Very impressive start on the D side of the ball.
No question. Who would have thought it was the defense and not Zach Collaros and the new Buck Pierce offense that was making waves early in the season? To allow 2 touchdowns through the first 2 games and both coming early in those games against the Ticats and against the Argos, it just shows how impressive this group is as a whole. There's always talk of that defensive front led by the Jeffs, Willie Jefferson and Jackson Jeffcoat. Of course, a lot of, really strong players in the middle and rotating in on that defensive line. Adam Bighill, of course. But, to have 3 rookie DBs starting in the secondary, 2 starting in week 1, and for the pass defense to be as good as it is, I don't know if it's those young guys on the back end playing strong or, and impressing early, or if it's just the ferocity of that pass rush up front that has quarterbacks kind of running for their life a little bit. But either way, in 2018 and 2019, this Blue Bombers team was the best run defense in the CFL, like hands down. Nobody could run on them. That's all teams can do right now. And if that's the way teams want to attack this Blue Bombers defense by running the football, so be it. The Bombers will do the same coming at you, and they'll, fight tooth and nail in the ball control game and time of possession and probably wear teams down. The one thing that stood out to me, Hustler, the one thing overwhelming is that now that we've had a chance to digest that game and talk to the guys on the Blue Bombers offensive line, maybe they feel they got out-physicaled a little bit at the line of scrimmage. I think that's the one area Winnipeg is really going to focus on going into this game number 2 against the Argos. Yeah,
we'll touch on the offense in a second, but I do want to just speak to the secondary for a moment, because I think we all realize that, coming into the season, with Sales gone and Rose gone, I mean, those were big parts of a championship team and such an important position in a CFL product that, focuses on the air game. Alfred and Nichols, I thought, had phenomenal debuts in the CFL. I mean, despite that even the touchdown that went in, the coverage was right there. It was just a hell of a catch, and obviously shut them down the rest of the way. And then you add in Josh Miller. I mean, I was buoyed on the offense of the Toronto Argonauts coming out of that game against the Calgary Stampeders. And I'll be honest, I mean, these guys have answered the questions big time. I guess that what happens when you bring in 35 or 40 DBs. You get some good competition in camp, and sounds like they've got some pretty nice guys to carry the torch from that 2019 team.
Yeah, 27 defensive backs the Bombers had in training camp this year, and nearly 20 American rookies or first-year guys to the CFL. So you got Dietrich Nichols, who led the XFL with 3 interceptions during their shortened 2020 season. You have DeAndre Alford, who made his way from, an unknown NCAA school in Tecumseh, and here he is in pro football, locking down a week 1 starter job in a secondary. David Rivers is somebody who will rotate in and is kind of there right behind Josh Miller, who got his first CFL start against the Argos in week 2. It says a lot about the coaching that both Jordan Younger, the Bombers defensive backs coach, does, and defensive coordinator Richie Hall. They coach these guys up well. And you look at the veterans, Brandon Alexander, maybe first and foremost, but Mike Jones and Nick Taylor, Josh Johnson, who's on the 6-game injured list with a head injury. All those guys have been helping these young guys along. There's no divide and conquer. It's, come together, all for one and one for all. They really do work as a cohesive unit, and they're not worried about losing their job because they know Mike O'Shea values them being a good teammate as much as anything. So if they're being a good teammate and helping each other out, it makes the collective group that much stronger. Now that we're seeing some injuries come in, Mercy Maston done for the season with a torn Achilles, and then as I mentioned, Josh Johnson out as well. And those departures you mentioned, here we are, 3 defensive backs who Bomber fans hadn't heard of just a matter of weeks ago. And, well, nobody can throw on this Blue Bombers defense. I was with you. I was expecting big things from McLeod Bethel Thompson. 354 yards in week 1 in McMahon, a tough place to play. And he comes into Winnipeg. It was a lot of 2-and-outs and 3-play series, and they just couldn't get anything going. It was John White in the run game, a couple big chunk plays. Outside of that, the Argos were pretty feeble offensively, and that's why we saw Nick Arbuckle come in the second half.
The Bombers did make a couple moves yesterday. Oh, we'll discuss the offensive moves and who's out in a moment. But linebacker Kevin Brown was signed, a guy with some CFL experience. What was behind this signing, and where does he fit in the Bomber defense?
Yeah, Kevin Brown, the second, I believe he goes by. 3 years with the Ottawa Redblacks. Maybe a bit of a surprise cut of the Edmonton Elks in training camp this year. Has that experience. That's valuable, especially early in the season. Linebacker is a tough spot to play. You got to kind of direct traffic a little bit and know what's going on. Sure, it helps if you have Adam Bighill next to you, but this job or this move was really corresponding to the Blue Bombers being a little bit thin at linebacker. Yes, they have Jesse Briggs, 7 years CFL veteran, a rock solid Canadian and special teamer, forced to fumble against the Argos. He's going to continue to start there. But Kyrie Wilson and Jontrell Rockamore, who's a rookie and looked really good with an interception in week 1, both of those guys dealing with hip issues. So if they're going to be out for an extended period of time, Wilson's missed almost a month now, and Rockamore's missed, about 2 weeks and is still not practicing. They need to make sure they have a contingency plan if that linebacking core continues to be depleted. But all things considered here, Hustler, the Blue Bombers' depth showing to be maybe their strongest asset overall, and that's saying something.
Well, absolutely, and the ability to get a CFL veteran like Brown available to come in and join this club, I'm sure he's quite excited about the opportunity to come to a 2-0 club after being on the street. And I'll tell you what, it's tough to get into the lineup, and if you do get into the lineup, you better show Mike O'Shea that you can carry your weight, because this defense is, they're averaging 6.5 points a game, and I think there's any coach in the CFL would be quite happy with that stat number. To bring Brown onto the roster, Cam Meredith was released. Many people thinking that, that's it for Cam Meredith, but it's a little different than that, Darrin, with him being here in Winnipeg. Certainly, I don't think he has the financial concerns considering the NFL money that, he had before coming to Winnipeg to live. How do you see this playing out? Have we seen the last of Cam Meredith as a Bomber, or is there still a path that he could possibly be back with the club at some point?
Yeah, you're right. This was a corresponding move. You remove Cam Meredith from the practice roster. On comes Kevin Brown. I expect him to be there for the time being. But with Cam Meredith, you're right. He signed multi-million-dollar contracts in the NFL. Time with Chicago, 66 catches off the arm of Jay Cutler a few years ago, and then signed a big contract with the New Orleans Saints. Ultimately, injury halted his NFL career a lot sooner than I'm sure he had hoped. But no, he's not playing in the CFL for money. He's not playing here to make, a top-end receiver salary in the $200,000 range. His bank account after a few years in the NFL is probably accruing more interest than his CFL paycheck will give him. So he's a family man. He's here, with his partner and his children in Winnipeg, and he wants to play football. I don't blame him. I don't think anybody would. It's about as good of a day job as you can get if you're able to do it. The Bombers have been extremely impressed with Cam Meredith as far as being a football player. He came in, was not healthy, I would say maybe 4 or 5 days into training camp, but he showed them enough in the early going that they were really impressed with him. Started the season on the practice roster. I don't think we've seen the last of Cam Meredith. Where's he going to go? Partner and kids are here, wants to play football, not doing it for the money. I think he's probably just going to lay low. And as Mike O'Shea stated yesterday, not healthy enough yet. But when he gets there, I have a feeling we're going to see Cam Meredith in blue and gold. I wouldn't rule it out yet.
Well, and it would be a great situation if the Bombers receiving core just stayed so healthy that they never needed another body, but that usually doesn't happen in professional football. Speaking of the Bomber receiving core, it was great to see Darvin Adams back on the practice field this week. How'd he look? What are we hearing about his availability for Saturday? And Darrin, just in your opinion, how much does Darvin Adams being in the Bomber starting lineup help things for Zach Collaros when it comes to stretching the field?
Yeah, it absolutely helps. You have a veteran there that is smart and accomplished in this league. It's going to make any receiving core as a group better. But again, that depth has shown the Bombers, especially with Kenny Lawler and the way Nick Dembski has been used in so many different ways, that they can do without Darvin Adams if they need to. It was 4 weeks ago today, Hustler, that I saw Darvin Adams go down in practice with that shoulder injury. It scared me at the time because I saw the way his teammates reacted. A lot of kind of, grimaces on their face, like, oh, they saw something kind of bad happen. All that said, It's been, almost a month now, and Darvin has slowly worked his way back to catching footballs and throwing them back, to the quarterback, which is a positive sign with that shoulder issue. Worked with the number ones on day one of practice this week. I wouldn't say he is definitely in or definitely out. I think they're going to see how he looks into Thursday and Friday when they travel to Toronto for that game on Saturday afternoon. So if you're a fantasy player, maybe be a little bit wary of that. I have seen the Blue Bombers give an injured player returning from injury first team reps, and they haven't played in the game. So if he's unable to go, Ardarius Stewart is another player that the Blue Bombers might tap. He's been limited in practice for the last couple weeks. I believe it's a foot issue with him. Out of Alabama, third-round draft pick in the NFL, another new CFL receiver here in Winnipeg that is already opening eyes. So again, when you have all these options, you don't have to rush anybody back. That's why I'm a little bit sheepish still on Darvin Adams playing on Saturday.
All that being said, man, Zach Collaros has looked good. And, we're talking with people around the Canadian Football League. I think there's still much more for this offense to show as a group. But the confidence that Collaros is playing with right now, I mean, there's been plenty of people, not even, provoked by me, mentioned he's looking like the guy that was, up for the MOP in 2015. The mobility that he has, and it seems the confidence he has playing behind that Bomber offensive line cannot be overstated, Darrin.
No question. And that confidence in Zach Collaros spills onto everybody and spills onto Collaros himself. You're starting to see him really gel with guys. Early in camp, it was Kenny Lawler, and we saw that with 2 touchdowns in the first half in week 1. We see it with Nick Dembski, the way they use him in the misdirection run game and in the intermediate passing game. Those passes to Rashid Bailey and Nick Dembski in week 2 against Toronto, both of those touchdowns, pinpoint accurate. I asked Dembski after the game if he could have thrown it any better. One-word answer, no. It was absolutely on the money, and it's one thing, okay? We're starting to see Zach Collaros return to his form of being an MOP favorite, over 5 years ago as, the quarterback of the Ticats. But we're also seeing him do things that maybe hasn't always been his bread and butter, and that's extend plays, roll out of the pocket, really make things happen when the pocket begins to break down. Defenses are getting very creative in attacking this physical, extremely strong Blue Bombers defense or offensive line. So there's Collaros able to break out of the pocket. And that confidence that they have in him spilling onto the receivers, they're, starting to make things happen downfield. And that's what makes an offense extremely dangerous. When option 1, 2, and 3 go to the wayside, Zach Collaros can make some magic happen. And man, he's just throwing the football as well as he ever has. Accurate, strong, smart, maybe the most important of it all.
Yeah, so a great start for the Bombers. They do go in and get right back at it against the Toronto Argos. Now, I mean, I know the setting will be very different. I imagine there'll be a few more empty seats, and the atmosphere might not be the same as it was, Darrin. But as far as this matchup goes, I mean, what do the Bombers have to do better, and what will they be focusing on to make sure they move on to week number 4 and back home to face the Calgary Stampeders at 3-0?
Yeah, I think special teams is one area they would like to be sharper on. Overall, I think, their cover teams have been good. Maybe they would like to be a little bit more effective in the return game. We've seen some chunks. Janarian Grant is on the 6-game injured list with an ankle injury. So enter Charles Nelson, who will handle the majority of the duties. We're always going to see Kelvin McKnight, even Nick Dembski factor into that as well. I think defensively, they would like to keep John White in check. He was a 100-yard rusher against the Blue Bombers in the first game. Well, it'll be curious to see if he's able to hit that triple-digit rushing number in the rematch on Saturday. As far as the Blue Bombers offense, well, we saw Brady Oliveira go off in week 1, really struggle in week 2, just 2.2 yards per carry and not even 30 yards on the ground. I think they would like to have more ball control and more balance as far as where they're effective offensively. But overall, while the score was only 20-6 in that first game between Toronto and Winnipeg, the Bombers were in complete control in this game. Maybe Nick Arbuckle adds a wrinkle and Toronto's able to put up more points. Really, I look towards, the point totals in this game as the big wild card. We might see another low-scoring game. If Nick Arbuckle is able to create something different than the Blue Bombers saw from almost three full quarters of McLeod Bethel Thompson, it could be a very different game on Saturday.
Yeah, well, and Dinwiesel for his part, Ryan Dinwiddie, I always used to call him the Dinwiesel. I guess now he's a coach. We should probably call him by his proper name. But, he had Arbuckle taking first team's reps yesterday, but said that they were going to probably be going with McLeod Bethel Thompson with first team reps today. I don't know whether that's just sort of trying to keep Mike O'Shea on his toes. But anyways, I guess we'll see. It's far from a 100% clarity on who the starting quarterback will be. And maybe that's just fine for the Winnipeg Blue Bombers.
I'll add this, Hustler. I'm inclined to believe that it will be Nick Arbuckle because he got day one first team reps. He's coming back from an injury, he's probably not quite 100%. It's a glute injury, a lower body one. So give him that day one reps, install the game plan against the Bombers on Saturday. Give him some time off in the middle of the week. And then when it comes to that final practice day and walkthrough, I would be very surprised if it wasn't Nick Arbuckle on Saturday.
DB, just quickly on the Canadian Football League, I'm looking at the helmets beside you there at Bonfire Sports HQ, and I can't help but stare directly at the two Alberta teams that are 0-2. What do you make of the starts of both Calgary and Edmonton 0-2 in their first two home games?
Yeah, well, we learned on Tuesday, Bo Levi Mitchell has not looked like himself, and it's because he had a broken fibula in his leg. So, is that the reason why he threw a career-high 4 interceptions in week 2? Maybe. Is it a reason why he definitely didn't look like himself in week 1? Maybe. Either way, they're going to have to go without him. He's now on the 6-game injured list. So you enter Michael O'Connor, time at Penn State, was excellent leading the UBC Thunderbirds to a Vanier Cup a few years ago. And under Dave Dickinson, he's shown success in developing Canadian quarterbacks and developing quarterbacks overall. So I look towards Calgary as only headed up. They have strong coaching, good level of talent. The defense was essentially rebuilt. They have a couple guys returning, but a lot of new players mixed in with those veterans. So it'll be interesting to see when they're able to turn things around. Edmonton, I understand a lot of people had them as a Grey Cup dark horse coming into this year. Jamie Elizondo reunited with Trevor Harris. I've never been sold on the Edmonton Elks. I really need to see something before I even begin to think that they're a team that can really compete with Saskatchewan and Winnipeg and even Calgary in the West. BC's starting to look like a pretty decent football team. I need to see more from them as well. But, 0-2 start in Alberta. It's got people shaking a little bit, wondering what's going on. But lots of football to play. Only a 14-game season, but we're going to see lots of these. Lots of football still to play. Calgary and Winnipeg back here at IG Field next week for week 4. That'll be an interesting game. This ravenous Bombers defense against a rookie Canadian quarterback in Michael O'Connor. That's must watch.
Well, it'll have a little bit of a different feel when Bo Levi is not leading the Calgary Stampeders out at IG Field against the Blue Bombers. I will say this for the Edmonton Elks side of things. You could maybe get past the bizarre loss in week 1 where they're off. They just simply couldn't get it into the end zone. Yeah. They had a couple devastating turnovers, including a pick 6 that flipped the game later on. But defensively, they didn't give up anything. And it was 71 or 77 yards of passing and like 100 yards of offense. That just simply never happens. And I think you could give them a mulligan if they didn't get thoroughly thumped by the Montreal Alouettes last week. I'm not sure whether we should just be that impressed with what Montreal did in Edmonton, having not played a game in 18, 19 months, or realize that, for all the things that Edmonton does well, there's a bunch of things that they're not doing well, and they are killing them on the scoreboard.
I look at the Montreal Alouettes as, they had the gift and the curse of that week 1 bye. The gift is a real extended training camp where they could be very ready for that game against Edmonton in week 2. The curse being it'll probably bite them. That's one of their 2 bye weeks already gone in this shortened season. Edmonton and Ottawa week 1, bad football teams, looking really bad. And, I like Paul LaPolice. I like Matt Nichols. I think he can be a very good quarterback with the right team around him, but he's not going to knock your socks off and put an offense on his back. So I didn't put too much into the Elks' defensive performance against them. If it wasn't for the special teams of Ottawa, I don't think they would have got a win in week 1. when you saw a Montreal team play against Edmonton in week 2, I started to see a little bit more of a test, and it kind of confirmed my, original theories on the Edmonton Elks maybe not being quite a complete football team yet. I'm very high on the Montreal Alouettes. Kahari Jones is a great leader of men. I think everybody there has bought into his system, and I think Vernon Adams is a budding star in this league. If they're able to get things a little bit more solid defensively, like to see Trevor Harris, he leads the league in passing yards. James Wilder Jr. leads the league in rushing, if I'm not mistaken, but they can't get into the end zone. So if Montreal is able to fix those things defensively, kind of playing that Richie Hall style defense, bend, don't break, allow all the yards and the big chunk plays, but not touchdowns. I think Montreal's a team that will definitely compete with Hamilton, another 0-2 team, and Toronto in the East.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Darrin Bauming is with us from Bonfire Sports and your go-to spot before Blue Bomber football with Game Day Winnipeg, along with the legend Chris Walby. DB, fill people in if they haven't caught the first couple shows. Where, when, and what is Game Day Winnipeg, and why should people be tuning in?
Yeah, we're going to have your game day coverage, everything you need to know leading into Blue Bombers games, both home and away. You mentioned it, the legend Chris Walby. I couldn't ask for a better co-host for that. We have a lot of fun, some laughs, and really get into what we expect to see in the game and give you all the information as far as the starting lineups and the rosters and all that if you're playing fantasy or dropping some bucks on the game. So have tons of fun. You can find that on our YouTube channel /Bonfire Sports or bonfiresports.ca as your kind of one-stop shop to find everything.
Make sure to give Darrin a sub over at Bonfire Sports, everybody. And, before you get ready to watch the game at 3 p.m. on Saturday afternoon, give Bauming and Walby and their pregame coverage a listen. DB, thanks for doing this. Enjoy the game tonight, and we'll catch up next week with the Stamps coming to Winnipeg for game number 4 of the regular season, before we go back-to-back with the Green Riders in what is shaping up to be an incredible home-and-home series with a couple teams potentially at the top of the Western Division.
Keep crushing it on Winnipeg Sports Talk, Hustler. I'm a big fan. Thanks for having me on.
All right, there's Darrin Bauming. Great to have DB on the program. We've got a big guest coming up, Nate Schmidt, live arm in the bullpen, ready to come out and join us. Before we do that, I want to thank Paramount Services Limited for their support of Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Paramount Services is a full facility maintenance company serving commercial HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and handyman services to all your favorite convenience stores and restaurants in Western Canada, doing it 24 hours a day, 365 days a year for just about 3 decades. If you're looking for a one-stop shop for kitchen and cooler supplies for your business or property anywhere in Western Canada, give them a call. Ask for my guy, Kerry O'Brien, or you can visit their website at ParamountServicesLTD.com for more information. And they're always looking for more qualified techs who specialize in HVAC, plumbing, electrical, and handiwork. Go to their website and submit your resume today. They are, of course, a member of the local Plumbers and Pipe Fitters Union. Big shout out to our friends at Knott Auto Corp. If you're looking for a vehicle, start at Knott. Whether you're looking for some of the Teslas or Range Rover, some of the incredible new vehicles they've got coming in on the lot. They've got it all there. They'll help you move out of your current car with their successful consignment program. They'll fix it with their Red Seal technicians in the service department, or they'll make it look like new with their detailing services. That and so much more. Why not get into the car of your dreams with the help of the Knott Auto Corp team? Knott Auto Corp, Waverly and McGilvery, and Knott.ca. And of course, a big shout out to our friends at Boston Pizza. We got a big Bomber game on the weekend. Might be a good time to set up shop inside the lounge. The Summers Here menu is live, including the Burger Italiano, the fried chicken, honey dill sandwich, and some incredible patio drinks, including the Peachy Mojito Royale, the White Sangria Smash, the Galaxy Fishbowl, and the Bulldog Margarita Fishbowl. Summers Here at Boston Pizza. Bring your appetite. Sunglasses optional. All right. We've been looking forward to this next chat for a few weeks, ever since our next guest was acquired from the Vancouver Canucks. It's an absolute pleasure to welcome in one of the newest members of the Winnipeg Jet, defenseman Nate Schmidt, who is live on location today. Nate, what's going on? Great to have you on the program, and fill our listeners and Jets fans in on where we're talking to you at right now.
Hey, no, thanks for having me on the show, guys. We're actually at Target Field watching the Minnesota Twins play right now. A buddy of mine had an extra ticket. I said, hey, it's afternoon game. Love it. Beautiful day outside today. So here we are watching a little baseball, doing some doing some chatting in between innings.
Well, I really appreciate you joining us. And I will say this, probably the coolest spot we've had someone join us on the program since we started a few months ago. So first things first, welcome to Winnipeg Sports Talk. It's a pleasure to have you on. And I can tell you from the excitement in the chat, Winnipeg Jet fans, very, very excited to see you wear number 88 on that blue line this year. Take us through the last last month or so. I mean, what was it like heading into the deal? We know you got a call from Paul Stastny who said, got something special going on here. And the next thing you know, you're a Winnipeg Jet. Fill us in on how it all went down.
Yeah, you know what? I've never been to free agency, but like right before free agency, started, it was a whirlwind of stuff going on. And, there's calls being made and they said, hey, there's a chance, you can move. And I said, okay, well, let's see how things kind of play out. Right. And it honestly was a tidal wave of just information. I don't think I've talked to my agent as much as I have in 10 years as I did in 2 days. And it almost got to the point where, feel like it took me like a day. Like, I mentioned it before, I had to go up to the hunting land and just kind of decompress for days and just kind of go through everything that they were throwing on you. And then, Winnipeg circled back around and said, hey, we'd really love to have you. But Paul was a guy that I really want to talk to. I play with him, and he's the guy that said, really, you're going to love what we're doing here. You guys get treated really well. We have a really good team. Our window is right now. I'm re-signing with the team because I think we can go out and win. And he's like, you're going to love it here. We have a great group. And that's what you want. I guess as a player, right? You want to be a part of that and something that you're trying to chase down a cup. I mean, that's what we do here at the end of the day. That's the reason why we lace them up. At least that's the reason why I lace them up. I want to go up there and hoist Laura Stanley, but you know what, and being a great place too. And it's just something that, and we're close to home, which always helps. Kind of to reacquaint myself to the winter weather, but hey, only from a couple hours south, so it shouldn't be too tough.
No doubt. And listen, I mean, since this team got going back in 2011, we've always talked about the Minnesota Mafia on the team right now, and that is growing with you on the club. I mean, certainly there'd be some guys you're playing. We'll talk about the Beauty League in a second, but so probably some familiar faces that you at least know from Minnesota hockey, and then of course a guy like Paul Stastny, who's so respected in the league that you played with in Vegas. Probably a good guy from a Jets perspective to have in your ear when thinking about maybe making a move.
Right. Paul's the ultimate, the ultimate pro, and everyone's always said that. He does things the right way. And when I work with him, and even I picked up a lot of things from working with him for the last couple of years. And so he's like, hey, Schmidt, this is kind of the way our group is. That's awesome. That's what you want. Like I said, that's what you're kind of, want to be involved with. And, the team is, you look around, you got, I know Wheels from Skateman, man. When I was in college, he was a pro. It's just, the Minnesota hockey community is really small. So you get to know a lot of guys, especially as alumni. It's awesome. And then Neil Pionk and I play together in the Beauty League. Always a treat. He's an interesting character. I sure like to play with him. Unfortunately this year hasn't been on my team, but thankfully during the season we'll be able to change that this year.
Nate Schmidt of the Winnipeg Jets with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily for the first time. You've had a lot of experience playing against the Winnipeg Jets. I mean, certainly all of us here remember that Western Conference Final Series back in 2018. And then, of course, your 1 year with Vancouver was spent inside the, Canadian division, which was a very strange year. And you played the Jets tons. I mean, what were your thoughts of Winnipeg before you got the calls from Kevin Cheveldayoff and your agent? They were looking to acquire you. I mean, when you thought of the Winnipeg Jets as an opponent, what came to mind, Nate?
Well, first you got to start with a world-class goaltender, right? He's an unbelievable goaltender that he has been for the last couple of years. I mean, you look back to our Western Conference Finals games. I mean, you look at what the future is for him, and with Marc-Andre Fleury, it was an incredible battle. The games were tight. It's fun to be a part of. It's fun having a guy back there that you can always rely on. And thankfully, I've been blessed to play with some great goaltenders in the league, from Holtby to Flower, and Thatcher Demko is a heck of a player as well, and in this league, and now Connor Hellbeck. It's just awesome, you guys. So you have to start there. But it's a team, the way that they play an up-tempo style. They want to get in your face, they want to go after it and get up into the play and have their D join, and I felt like that's something that really kind of tailors to my game. And it's just from talking with the guys. It's so important, chemistry in the room. And you talk around the guys and say, this is such an important part of hockey. I mean, you have all the things that are going on the ice, everything that you guys see, but it's all the stuff that happens behind the scenes, which is an incredible piece to the puzzle, when you're trying to put together a team.
Well, and you mentioned Connor Hellebuck. It's kind of hard to talk about the Jets without mentioning a Vezina Trophy winning goaltender. But from a defense perspective, and a defenseman that certainly does like to do things in both ends, what does playing in front of a guy like Hellebuck do for the confidence of a defensive unit from 1 to 6 and a player like yourself?
It gives you a lot more at ease knowing that he's back there, right? And you feel a lot better about knowing that if something does happen, we do get caught up the ice. You got a world-class goaltender back there. But you know what? I think that's something when you look back and say, wow, you know what? It's an incredible part to have to your team. I think every team that's been winning the last 10 years or so, it's all based off of always having a great goaltender, having someone on the back to kind of propel yourself and kind of be your motor, right? Our forward group is incredibly talented. I'm really excited to see a lot of like with Dubois getting in a full season in, and it's hard. Last year changing teams was tough. Just with everything that's going on, all the normal things that you're so used to as a team, as a player, when you're out on the road, all those things. Like, you couldn't do any of that stuff. So that makes it really difficult for guys. But I think this year, when you have these types of, with Brandon Dillon, myself, bugging the whole year, it's going to make a big difference for our group and being able to be together for this.
Well, and it's hard to talk about your addition without talking about Dylan as well, because they sort of came within 24 hours.
Yeah.
And, I'll tell you what, I mean, we were quick to raise the off-season champions banners here in the thing, because I mean, this was such a big need for the Winnipeg Jets, and the way Cheveldayoff was able to acquire not one but two guys that could, literally be plunked into the top 4 immediately. It makes makes the team better. But I do have to ask from your perspective. I mean, a guy like Dylan, and of course you played against them, in some pretty big games in the past. Yeah. When you look at the top 4, let's include Josh Morrissey and Neil Pionk of that group. Is there a natural spot for you? Have you talked to them about where you'll start, and maybe touch on playing the right side, because so much has been made of, the Jets' right side, which formerly had Trouba and Byfuglien and Myers. There's been a huge change and really a need for someone to come in, be comfortable on that side, and be able to log some significant minutes for Paul Maurice.
Yeah, just dating back to the first question, Brandon Dillon is a guy that comes in with such a personality and such a mantra to him. Everyone that you've talked to, everyone that I've talked to, and I've talked to him as well. He's a phenomenal guy, and he's a son of a bee to play against too. That makes it even better, right? You have a guy back there that's big and heavy and can play a lot of different styles of games. It's awesome. That was right before my kind of deal went through. They're like, hey, we're gonna get to this guy, Brandon Dillon. I was like, wow, what? We're really going for this a revamp on the D-core side. And for me, I've played on the right side, man. It's dating back to when I was in junior. It's always just been something out of necessity. I always had too many lefties when I was playing junior, too many lefties when I played at school, too many lefties when I got to Washington. And so it was always, and I said this before, Brooks Orpik wasn't playing the right side. So it was my choice. In order for me to play, I had to play on the right side. And so you just get comfortable being on the offside. You get comfortable with the angles and the defensive positioning a little bit more. I actually think playing defense on the right side is actually easier because you stick to the outside. You allow yourself to put it out there and not have to give up your body position. And so I think actually on defensively, it's a little bit easier to defend. Now breaking pucks out on the backhand is obviously something you have to learn over time, and it's not always the prettiest way, but it's something that for me, we've talked to Coach Maurice, and there's going to be a couple different, variations. We're going to try a lot of different things in camp. Wherever you guys feel comfortable, we're going to go from there. So once we get kind of rolling through camp, I think that things will start to shape up.
Tell us about that first chat with Coach Paul Maurice. And did you know much about Maurice? Had you had any connections with him beforehand, other than being on the other side when he may have been losing it on the bench at some point against your team?
I love it. You know what? It's like Jordan Gallant, same thing, right? That animation that gets guys fired up on the bench. I love it. I love the intensity, the passion. I think it's really cool when he's getting the guys going. I think I personally didn't have any interactions with him before, but know him and Pete DeBoer pretty close. And I loved playing for Pete. Play a similar style is another reason why you look at it and say, "Wow, this is something I've thrived in." Previously, I'd love to get back and try this and be a part of something like this again. But our chat was great. We just talked. He's kind of a no fluff guy, kind of gets it to you straight, and that's what I love. I love that type of open communication of that type of dialogue. We had a couple deals in place. We'll see how those play out during the year. It should be fun. We got a couple things under the table that a couple aces up his sleeve, as he calls them. So it should be fun. I think there's going to be a couple things at practice that you guys are going to enjoy seeing.
Hey, I've got to ask you, did you happen to see Kevin Weeks's Paul Maurice impression that was running around the internet last week talking about his first playoff start?
I read it. I haven't seen it, actually seen the video yet. So I will. I've been wanting to check that out. I heard it's incredible. So I can't wait.
It is 5-star, without a doubt, one of the funniest things I've seen from a hockey player. And you being a guy that obviously loves to have a good laugh will absolutely enjoy it. And I'm sure you'll probably get to see some of that firsthand, a lot of the stuff that we don't get to see. Nate Schmidt of the Winnipeg Jets is with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk. It was clear, honestly, from watching you on the opposition team that you come with an incredible energy level to pretty much any situation, and are a guy that really does like to have fun. And to be honest, from my perspective, even as much as you're going to bring to the team on the ice, I think this Winnipeg Jets team is going to really benefit from the type of player you are off the ice. Can you just speak to a little bit of that, about loving every minute of the opportunity you have and going in, and hey, if you're going to be doing it anyways, you may as well have a good time doing it?
Yeah, you know what? You kind of embrace the grind, right? You embrace the tough things about the job, right? And it is, sometimes you forget it is a job. We do get paid to have fun every day. That's the way I like to try and go into the rink. And I think it's something that it really is contagious, right? Things start going a little bit astray, or things don't go well, and times are tough. It's going to happen throughout the season. The best teams always go through it. And not getting down on yourself and on your team and on your system and all those other things. I think that's a huge part of hockey. Huge part of the mental battle as an 82-game season goes through, or like a 56-game, super condensed season like we did last year. It's hard. There's going to be times this season, and for us as players, we got to find ways to, try and enjoy it and never hit the fast forward button. That's something I always tell younger guys. Never be like, oh, I'm going to gear it up for playoffs. Can't wait for the playoff push, or I can't wait for All-Star break, so I get to see my family again or whatever. I'm like, enjoy these days in between, because these are the days that you'll never get back again. Like when you're playing and you're going up and, stretching in the morning, and someone, says something and does something funny, and everyone's talking about it for the next couple of weeks. A guy gets a nickname that day and everyone remembers. So I think it's the things like that. It's the small things that everyone usually will remember as the year goes on.
I think that is a great thing for the Winnipeg Jets, in addition to what you'll be doing when you're on the ice. Nate Schmidt's with us. Speaking of fun, you're legendarily the guy that brought the Mario Kart game from Washington to Vegas. Do you still roll that around with you? And do you have any plans for what you might introduce into the Jet room for the upcoming season?
I got a couple ideas. We'll see how they stick. I don't want to be too quick, But the N64 is actually hooked up at the cabin right now. It will be in a bag, ready to rock for the road trips this year, just in case we can't go out and do anything. So it'll always be with me, just no matter where we go.
Hey,
it's always fun. Hey, nothing's better than throwing a couple red shells around in Mario Kart.
No doubt about that. Hey, you mentioned last season and just how weird it was. I think everyone's hoping that we're going to get to a place that, a lot of these restrictions aren't on. But, as a guy that's been in the league for a while, that has been through, losing part of a season, going back into a bubble, and then playing in the circumstances you did last year, and not to mention being part of a team that had the most significant COVID outbreak in the National Hockey League. When you look back, is it just a crazy blur right now, or are there some things that, maybe make you appreciate more, hopefully, what will be to come going forward for everyone that went through it?
Well, let's just talk about one thing. First things first. Playing without fans is tough. It's hard. It's amazing how much energy we grab from the fans every time you come into a rink. Doesn't matter if you're playing in, on the island on a Tuesday night or whatever. You always get that energy of being inside a rink and at buzz. And maybe one team's coming off a homestand, we're coming home after 10 days on the road. And it's just whatever it is. It brings so much energy and joy and happiness to you and myself. And it's the guys, when you come out to warm-ups, you feel the energy. It was hard. Last year and a half was really tough. Having to kind of get yourself going and get yourself up for every game when it's just you guys on the ice every night. You know, it was tough. It was definitely, you take a lot of things for granted. That's probably the biggest one. And just being able to go out, you know, with the guys and, you know, you have a tough night, go and have a pint or, you know, something just to kind of put it behind you. You couldn't do any of those things. It's home, and it's home, rink, home, testing, back to home, back to testing. You know, it was a little bit too, it was just too crammed up last year. Hopefully things open up, it'll be a lot better. But I am excited to see the Jets put it out that they're allowing people into the rink this year, which is going to be awesome. There isn't too many other buildings that I'd rather play in, especially when it's buzzing. I think it's right there at the top of the list. Yeah, the Belfast. So I'm excited. Excited for it to finally be back.
Well, I can tell you the fans are fired up. That opening game with the new faces like yourself and Brendan Dillon, I think you're gonna have you're gonna get the welcome that you'll just see how excited people are in this city to get things going on this season. Nate, I do want to ask you one question that's more baseball related before we go, but the final one sort of on hockey is, I mean, when you're traded, and you've moved before, but especially in such a compacted offseason, I imagine that puts a lot more things on the table. I mean, what have you been doing the last kind of 2 or 3 weeks? You mentioned the beauty league, maybe touch on that, but just from life, I mean, how many things are sort of on your plate when you go through a move like this? And is the to-do list a lot longer when you get to Winnipeg than a normal year?
Yeah, to-do list has been big, and it's gonna stay that way for the foreseeable future. But I'm really okay with that because we've been doing not much for the last year and a half. So I've really kind of enjoyed, you know, ever since I've been home. I mean, I'm trying to see as many of the people I haven't been able to. I have a big family and buddies that are around town. It's been awesome to see everybody again. And like I said, I've been kind of a yes man all summer. Like, hey, want to go to Twins game? Yep. Want to play beach volleyball? Sure. You know, whatever anyone's up to. So, yeah, this year is going to be a little bit more stuff to go through, especially with the move and getting our stuff out of Vancouver, then out of Vegas. Still, it's been a little bit of a back and forth, but I think we'll have everything. And the Jets have been really, really accommodating to help move everything, get everything all squared away, kind of take the pressure off, which has been really nice. And the guys on the team to help you find out where to live and do all these things. Actually staying at former Cody, Winnipeg native Cody Eakin's place for the first part of the year. So know that I got somewhere I'm already going to, which is nice.
That is great. Now, Nate, you, of course, people are wondering where Nate is. Nate is actually at Target Field right now, taking a little time out of the Twins game to join us here. And I cannot have you on the program for the first time without talking. What certainly amongst Winnipeg Sports Talk listeners is a top 10 sports moment of the year. Your catch in Vegas in that softball game. Can you please set this up for our listeners? Once we're done, we'll play it for the folks that they haven't seen it. But you talked in an interview about playing a whole bunch of different sports. You're obviously there, spending some time in the outfield. And the scene at that game looked pretty wild as well. Take us through what happened there.
So it's a charity event, right? We're playing against it's some ex-Vegas guys, and I spent a lot of time there in the summer. Still have the house there just because a lot of guys, guys that have been here, there, and gone have come back, and, it's beautiful this summer to play golf and all that stuff. But, so we go down to this game. There's 15,000 people packing this AAA ballpark, and it's buzzing. We're in there, it was a tremendous event. They raised over $180,000, which was awesome for autistic kids and kids that want to play, underprivileged kids to play baseball, which is awesome. And so Ryan Reeves and I were sitting out there, and a guy hits a home run. I go, you know what? That's a joke. I'm gonna jump over the fence and just catch it next time. So the ball gets hit, and we're sitting out there. We're kind of both trotting back. And he's like, "You jumping over the fence?" I go, "I don't think it's gonna make it." Sure enough, we started running back. And honestly, it's probably one of the top 10 highlights of my sports career as well. And all of a sudden, I see it, and the fence is pretty short, so I can put my hand down on the railing. And sure enough, when I go up, I had it in my glove and honestly went bananas. I couldn't believe it actually happened. My heart was going a million miles an hour. The crowd went bananas. It was awesome. It's something that, to be honest, I watched probably 10, 15 times after it was over. I'm like, this is sweet. It was awesome.
Did I just do
Super
that?
Cool. Yeah, I was like, did that just happen? So it was pretty cool. I was pretty pumped up about it.
Well, I can tell you what, if the Twins maybe need an extra bat or somebody in the field, just give him your card from the section you and the boys are sitting in this afternoon for the ball game. Nate, listen, I won't take up any more of your time. Hopefully we can get a chance to do this again once you get here to Winnipeg. But this has been a lot of fun. Jet fans are absolutely fired up to have you here in Winnipeg and on the blue line next year. Enjoy the rest of the game. We'll see if the Twins can come back. Have a great rest of the summer, and we'll look forward to seeing you here in Winnipeg to get this season going.
Yeah, awesome. Really appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, and we'll do this in person someday.
Count on that, my friend. Thanks so much.
Sounds good. Thanks, gents.
There he is. What a fun conversation that was. Nate Schmidt of the Winnipeg Jets. And I don't know whether we'll play this right now or at the end of the program, but the catch I am referring to, if you have not seen this before, I mean, I'm not just fluffing the guy. This was an this is the softball equivalent maybe of our next guest, 2 holes in 1. Well, maybe not that. That's still right up there. But yes, you know, when I mentioned 2 holes in 1, Ken Wiebe is coming up. But before we do that, do want to thank Little Brown Jug for their great support of Winnipeg Sports Talk. You know, we were giving Dallas congratulations on his impending nuptials coming up this week. And I know he was out with, I guess, the people in his wedding party having a few. And I have a feeling there'll be a few 1919s cheers at Dallas's wedding on the weekend. Even if you're not getting married, it's always a great time to enjoy the great taste of Little Brown Jug. You can get it delivered directly to your home simply and easily by going to littlebrownjug.ca. If you order by 4 p.m., you'll get same-day delivery within the city of Winnipeg. And, of course, you can pick the 1919 Up and the Great Summer Variety Pack, which includes the new Summer Lager, the Hefeweizen as well, at any local bottle shop. Or pop down and see them on William Avenue, a beautiful patio to enjoy some beer, a slice of pizza. You can check the events page on their site for some of the live music that's coming there. And again, you can pick up great merchandise and see where the magic happens at Little Brown Jug over on William Avenue. Northern Trust on the PGA Tour gets going tomorrow. When we talk golf here on the program, we always do it courtesy of Breezy Bend Golf and Country Club. What a season it's been out at Breezy. And next year could be shaping up to be even better, as all of the course improvements they've been doing over the last couple of years will be fully ready to go. We just saw that 6th fairway getting seeded last week. If you're looking for a home for your family's golfing for the upcoming year, get on that waiting list. Talk to Corey Johnson, or hit them up at breezybend.ca for more information. And as far as the PGA Tour goes, top 125, including Roger Sloan, the Canadian, who had that T2 last week at the Wyndham to get into it, maintain the card for next year, and go for the big money. The event starts tomorrow. We actually went over quite a bit of the picks and whatnot, a studded leaderboard when you're talking about the FedEx Cup playoffs for the Northern Trust. Dustin Johnson coming off that ridiculous 11-shot win last year when he went 30 under par. And we also have to shout out our friends at Aikens Lake and Cool Bet Canada. Cool Bet, we still have a little bit of time, about an hour if you want to get on the Lock Shop Boosted Odds Partner Parlay. We did that from the shop earlier. I got the Alouettes money line. Dusty's on the Jays today, and Chris is on the Red Sox. Their bullpen stinks. We're going to take them in the first 5 innings, minus a half a run. If those 3 come in, we've got it boosted up to plus 675. You'll see it on the main page at coolbet.com. It's the Lock Shop Boosted Odds Partner Parlay. And don't forget, if you haven't played there, you can utilize the promo code WST for a 100% bonus up to $200 on your first deposit. All right. That was a lot of fun. Remo, do we have the catch right now? I know people are still all over it, or do you want to wait till the end of the program?
One sec, I can pull it up. Hold on.
Yeah, let's get this up.
I know
we can get Ken Wiebe spent his fair share of time on a ball diamond as well. I think it might be good. We'll both get Ken's thoughts on the conversation we just had, as well as this. But people are dying to watch it. If you are listening on the podcast, you know, we'll tweet this out again from at Sports Talk WPG. And if you're not following us on Twitter, please do, as well as the other feeds coming up. We can tell you that tomorrow on the program, we're going to have another member of the Winnipeg Jets join us, Andrew Kopp, who's got a new deal, 1 year. He's going to join us. Very much looking forward to that. And we'll also break down all the Week 3 CFL matchups with Marshall Ferguson, who is quickly becoming, in my opinion, one of the best analysts of the 3-down game. And on Friday, we'll have a lot more on the Bomber-Argo matchup on Saturday's game, and we'll also have the return of none other than the Hacksaw himself, Lee Hacksaw Hamilton. It's been a while since we had the NFL Notebook, but we need the NFL Notebook right now as people are getting ready to make picks. They're getting ready to get their fantasy seasons ready, and you just want to see how much excitement they should have for their team coming into this year. So we're going to get Ken Wiebe on in just a second, but here it is. This is the catch that Nate Schmidt was just speaking about. 15,000 at this ballpark. It's Schmidt and Reeves in the outfield. Watch the play and the excitement that he brings. And, you should be excited when you make a catch like this. Check this out.
Yeah, there you like, he's fired up.
You know what? He's probably as fired up after that than almost any goal that he scored as a professional hockey player. And it was funny that he copped to watching that thing 10 or 15 times. If that was me, oh, look at that catch. It's just amazing. What a guy he was, and what a debut on Winnipeg Sports Talk. We've been waiting to have Nate on. He was phenomenal. And, really the first appearance that he made outside of his first media press conference was with our next guest, as he joined one Ken Wiebe along with Sean Reynolds, who are in the opposite of hibernation right now. They're not doing a lot on the Kenny and Rennie, but Ken, as maybe the most prolific amateur golfer, not as far as winning, but as far as holes played, continues his epic Manitoba golf tour. Weaver, what's up? How are you?
Huss, I am tremendous. Thank you for having me. A great star-studded lineup today. Was able to catch both DB and Nate Schmidt, and I'm going to just come right out of the gate as someone who played the outfield for quite a few years. That is one of the most spectacular catches I've ever seen at any level in any sport, and the subsequent celebration and admission that I went back and watched it hundreds of times is absolutely, it tells you all you need to know about Nate Schmidt. This is a guy who, embraces life. He oozes passion, and that's just I love the fact that he also called his shot, but the plan was just to jump over the fence and be like the guys, the relievers in the bullpen, catching it. But he actually caught it and made an unreal play. So this is not a Jose Canseco off the noggin over the head for the home run special. This is like one of the best highway robberies you'll ever see on a ball diamond. And like I said, the passion of the celebration, as someone who enjoys a little bit of a celebration and a great catch, that's just fabulous. And great on Nate Schmidt to be joining you from one of the most scenic ballparks in the major leagues. And as someone who's been to all 30 parks, well, with the exception now of the new Texas park, Target Field is in the top 10. And Huss, Jays fans will be thrilled to know that next year's season series at Minnesota will be happening on May long weekend. And I would imagine that as long as those borders are open and we don't have any COVID issues, there's going to be a massive brigade going from Manitoba to Minneapolis next year, 2022 season.
Yeah, great. And yet, for those that maybe popped in earlier and wondering, someone asked if he was in the shower. I mean, that would have been a pretty elite shower if that's where he was. But no, he was in
those are the outfield tiles right there. Those are just beautiful.
Exactly. So to have it, and we had to show that and talk about him a little bit. But I mean, as far as we've talked about this a little bit before, probably more off air than on air. I don't want to say the Jets as a team. At times they were a little stiff, and they're building teams, there's so much more than just simply what the guy can do on tape. It's hard not to listen to Nate Schmidt speak and get a smile on your face and feel some of his energy. What do you think that can do for the Winnipeg Jets? How beneficial in your mind will that be for the Jets as a team, considering what they hope to do next season?
Yeah, no doubt that's a factor, Huss. We know the Jets talked openly about being a pretty close-knit team the last couple of years, and they were. But this is a guy that brings incredible energy, as we mentioned, the passion level that Nate Schmidt will bring, and the joy level. This is a team that could use a little bit of joy level at times. There's nothing wrong with a business-like approach, and the Jets' leadership is filled with business-like approach guys, and that's good. But you also need to have guys who love coming to the rink every single day and are fired up about it. I mean, I think one thing even Nate told us, back, when the trade was made, he's the guy that's organizing the Masters pool and the NCAA bracket. I mean, he's the guy that wants to bring people together, whether it's on the ice or off the ice and for events, dinners, whatever else. COVID would have been really hard for a guy like Nate Schmidt, who is a really social guy and loves the gatherings and bringing people together. And when you're sort of stuck between home, hotel, rink, I mean, that's got to be hard on everyone. We know that, but it was really tough on a guy like Nate Schmidt. And the on-ice portion, I mean, he kind of got away from the things that he's really good at. He's an aggressive guy, loves to get up in the plays. He gets physical with people. I mean, he talked to, on that NHL Network interview about being more explosive, getting back to that explosive style of skating. And I know you asked him specifically, and he wasn't ready to take the bait, but I think Nate Schmidt is going to be playing on the top pairing with Josh Morrissey, and I think you're going to see Brendan Dillon with Neil Pionk. Yes, we're going to see some juggling, and when the Jets are down, maybe you see Pionk and Morrissey go together, but I fully expect that Nate Schmidt is going to be the new partner for Josh Morrissey, and I think there's great potential for that unit to be exceptional. And I also like what you could see with Brendan Dillon and Neil Pionk. I mean, we know that Derek Forbert, had a pretty decent first half. Things kind of tapered off in the second half, but you have a little bit more ability with Dillon, and you have a little bit more meanness. I think a little bit more physical play, and he's a little bit more mobile, and he really does a great job of keeping the front of the net clean. So that pairing, I think, is going to be very stable. And then I think Nate Schmidt is going to be a great partner for Josh Morrissey. I think you're going to see Josh Morrissey play like he did against the Edmonton Oilers in the first round of the Stanley Cup playoffs, and Nate Schmidt will have something to do with that. Nate's a guy who can jump into the rush, but he's also a very defensively sound individual. He makes smart, quick reads. He's a great puck mover. And as I mentioned, his mobility is something, and his competitive nature are really going to allow those two. I think you can get back to seeing Josh Morrissey where he was at in that Jacob Trouba, Josh Morrissey pairing. But I mean, in terms of the personality, and this is a guy that has incredible desire to win, Huss. And that's another thing. You're bringing in guys that have experience. Brendan Dillon, Nate Schmidt, they've both been to the Stanley Cup final. They've been to the Western Conference final. They know what it takes to get there. They've been on winning teams, and they know what it takes to win. And I think those are two huge qualities. And then you're bringing in two exceptional people, and also keeping another in Paul Stastny, who, as you mentioned with Nate earlier, was one of the big factors in the full court press that the Jets organization made in convincing Nate Schmidt that this was a great fit for him in terms of that trade.
All right, Wiebe, and obviously we wanted to start off with Nate. It was a perfect kind of transition from the conversation we just had. But we have not spoken on this program since the moves were made last week. Let's start off with the Neil Pionk signing, 4 years at just under $6 million. Thoughts on that? And then I guess we'll take it to what that meant for Andrew Kopp. Yep. And, the team and Kopp's representatives are agreeing on a 1-year deal at around 3.6.
Yeah, it's for me, the interesting thing with Pionk was the term. I wondered if at one point Pionk might be the guy that does end up going to arbitration, not because the Jets wanted to go there, but because a one-year term might have been the more palatable situation. But when you have other guys like Darnell Nurse and Seth Jones and some of the other guys who've been signing in the offseason, being around that $9 million range, all of a sudden, every player that's signed kind of bumped Pionk's potential long-term earnings potential up another, whether it's $1 million or $1.5 million or whatever number you want to use. Now you're getting him locked in, sort of in line with that Wheeler / Scheifele / Hellebuck window. Yes, you have him 1 year beyond that, but you have a really stable number where, whatever you want to call Neil Pionk. If he's maybe he's not a clear-cut number one guy, but the Jets have a lot of guys who are top pairing ability type of guys, whether you want to call them number twos or really good number threes. They've stabilized. Now Neil Pionk is at a solid number for a 4-year term. He's going to be happy, but he's not going to be complacent. This is a guy that, undrafted player, had to make a career for himself. He knew full well that everyone in Manitoba was saying, who is this guy the Jets have traded for Neil Pionk that we've barely, or for Jacob Trouba that we've never heard of? The Jets obviously did their work with their scouting staff. They knew what they were getting, but Neil Pionk has exceeded expectations and become a really important member of this hockey team. So now you have that locked up for a 4-year term. You got a guy who, the biggest thing for me, will Neil Pionk be running the first unit? Is he on the second unit? The other thing with Nate Schmidt, he's a guy that has a really big shot from the point. So do you see Wheeler facilitating from the half wall? Will you see Kyle Connor in the one-timer spot? where are things going to go with the power play? That's a big question mark for me. But we know Nate Schmidt can help the power play as well. But we know Neil Pionk, his shot was, I think improved last year from the point. So you could see a situation where the Jets go back to, having Wheeler run things from the wall, Pionk at the top, and maybe Scheifele slides back into the high slot, or maybe he stays where he's at. I mean, will we see Nikolai Ehlers on the first power play unit on that sort of flank where he gets the redirect and the shot going from the point? I mean, really interesting to see, but Pionk is an important signing at, I think, a reasonable number. Maybe it's slightly higher than we might have anticipated going into the offseason, but after seeing some of the other signings, it makes a whole lot of sense. Transitioning to Andrew Kopp. Obviously, there's a lot of people in town wondering, does this mean Andrew Kopp didn't want to be here long term? I can tell you with 100% certainty, Andrew Kopp was interested in signing for 4 or 5 years with the Winnipeg Jets. But what happened in the offseason with the additions of Dylan and Schmidt and then getting Pionk locked in, it didn't leave a big enough piece of the pie for Kopp to be able to lock in at a number, whether that number is 4.5 or whatever, between 4.5 and 5, let's say. But as Andrew Kopp told us, he's happy with the number. He felt, there was a little bit of give and take there. Would he have preferred 4? Of course. But he thought he got more money than he would have got in arbitration. Yes, I know a lot of people want to say, well, this means Andrew Kopp is gone automatically. This is not the case. Andrew Kopp, does he want to know what he's worth in the open market? Sure. Probably, but he's also committed to this core group. The term that I used is sweat equity, Hustler. He's invested a lot of sweat equity in this group, and he said it himself. I mean, if he had pushed and said, well, no, I want to learn long-term deal now, but you can only get it in Seattle probably, right? Or a team that isn't going to be as competitive. So he wanted to take another run with his team. And I'm going to tell you right now, will he check out what he's worth on the open market? Probably, but that doesn't mean he will not consider signing with the Jets. So I don't think this is a one and done for Kopp. A lot of people are comparing it to other situations. This is not a guy that's dying to get out of town, going somewhere else. He just wants a chance to continue to improve his standing and enhance his role. So I think he'll have a chance to do that. He's in that kind of middle 6 category right now. But this is a guy who's a great third line player and has shown he can adequately fit in the top 6 and give you some solid production. But I mean, Kopp's a guy that's never satisfied either. He's coming off a career year. I expect him to have to build on that career year and really we know he's going to be motivated, Huss, right? I mean, that's one thing we know about Andrew Kopp, and you're going to see it tomorrow when you have him on live again. This guy is always pushing to get better, much like Nate Schmidt. Nate Schmidt, undrafted guy, right? I mean, had to earn everything. Kopp is that way. He hears people saying, well, you know what? He brought it up on his own this time. I've been working on my finishing, that thing that you guys always say that I can't do. That was the implication in that interview. And I love the fact that Andrew Kopp takes that personally. And you know what he's done? Every time someone says he can't score, he goes out and scores more goals than he scored the year before. So I expect him to have a really good year. I know some people on the asset management side are saying, well, you got to trade Kopp at the deadline and get something for him. I disagree completely. This is just like 2018, Huss. You had Brandon Tanev, you had Tyler Myers, you had Ben Sherratt. You wanted to sign a couple of them if you could, but this is the cost of doing business when you're a competitive team trying to win. If you get nothing at the end, that's not the way to look at it. You got 7 great years of Andrew Kopp, and if you can keep him and retain him, all the better if you're the Winnipeg Jets. But this is not a you lose him for nothing situation. When you're trying to win, you do not trade Andrew Kopp for a couple of second-round draft picks that might help you 4 years down the road. You don't know what you got in that window. You know what you have right now. Andrew Kopp is an important part of this team at the Winnipeg Jets. He's an important part of the leadership group, and he's highly motivated to have another great season, and that is what he's going to have.
Yeah, and make no mistake about it. If Andrew Kopp is traded before the deadline next season, that is a disaster for the Winnipeg Jets because, I mean, you just laid it out, Ken. And this is partly why I think the 1-year deal was palatable to both sides. I think they realized the cap implications of where they were after signing Neil Pionk. They absolutely thought that they needed him to put their best foot forward and try and win this season. And there is a risk of doing business, but, to your point about, maintaining all your assets, if the team was in a different stage of its development, then I'm here for that argument. that's not where this team is after the additions that Kevin Cheveldayoff has made so far this season. So, and I wouldn't even rule out, Ken, that the Jets and his representatives talking after January begins on potentially working something out. I mean, it'll probably have a lot to do with where Pierre-Luc Dubois is this season and what he projects to be if he's with the Jets long-term with his RFA deal coming up, and as well as what's next for Paul Stastny. He's on a 1-year deal. If he doesn't play beyond this season, then you've got some more money that comes up. So I think there's still a lot up in the air in this situation. It certainly doesn't have the certainty that a guy like Neil Pionk does, but that's almost a good thing for the Winnipeg Jets, that they're in a situation like this, that they may have to risk losing a player like that because they do believe their opportunity to do something significant when it comes to wins and losses, and most importantly, the Stanley Cup playoffs is now.
Yeah, and Andrew, encapsulated it best, right, by saying, I've been betting on myself for the last 10 years. And for people who are unfamiliar with the Andrew Copp story, this is a guy that had to earn his way on the U.S. national team program after he didn't start the year with them. This is a guy who was a walk-on at the University of Michigan. He had other scholarship opportunities, but wanted to play in Ann Arbor. Guess what? By year 3, Andrew Copp was not only an important part of that team, he was the captain of that team. So this is not a guy who's going to be nervous thinking, oh, you know what? Now I'm 1 year away from unrestricted free agency. I have to play great. He's a guy that is going to say, I'm going to play great, and then I'm going to cash in, whether it's with the Winnipeg Jets or elsewhere. And again, I think this is a guy who wants to be in Winnipeg. He wants to continue to be part of it, and he would love to help this team win a championship. He wants to reap the rewards of what he's put in and invested so far. He sees the commitment level that the Jets management team has made this offseason in shoring up the defense and continuing to bring in players who want to be there. I think, too, this is an underrated signing. A guy like Riley Nash, I think, is going to be an important player for the Winnipeg Jets, whether that's on the third line with Adam Lowry or more likely on the fourth line, providing a little bit of veteran stability. This is a guy who's a great penalty killer, really smart guy, went to Cornell, loves hockey again, just sort of fits in with the kind of the culture the Jets are trying to bring in. And, circling back to Nate Schmidt is a culture carrier. This is a guy that people want to be around, and you want to kind of build your team around. So I think it's just an absolutely home run addition. And I think Brendan Dillon, even though he maybe not be as effusive maybe as Nate Schmidt, this is a guy that has a big personality as well, loves the game, passionate, and he's going to be a great person in that room as well. Been around a lot of great players, and an underrated kind of player who, not a lot of Jets fans maybe know as much about, because he spent so much of his career, whether it be early on in Dallas when he was breaking in, but then in San Jose when, they're not staying up for the 9:30 starts in San Jose. But this is a guy who is, a really good partner, yes, with Dylan DeMello as well, but he also played at times with, whether it was Erik Karlsson or Brent Burns, a really good physical guy. And again, a good person. A really good person who, after the initial shock of being traded after a spot that he committed to the previous summer, he's excited about the opportunity and what's happening here in Winnipeg. And it'll be fascinating, Huss. There's been a lot of movement within the Central Division. How are all those moves going to shake down? There's still some things happening with the Minnesota Wild. The St. Louis Blues are going to look markedly different. Obviously, we think it's going to be Colorado, and then, kind of a jumble, but I think the Jets are definitely in that mix, that two to three or four mix. And then you have a bunch of teams kind of fighting for the, second wild card potentially, just because of how things look in the Pacific, where there it's Vegas. And Edmonton still should be in the mix there. But after that, it's kind of, wide open spaces for the third spot in the Pacific Division. So I think this move back to the Western Conference will be very interesting to monitor. But the Jets have positioned themselves well through this offseason. And now it's a matter of, putting the pieces together, seeing where guys fit. There's, Larry Simmons and on the capology side has got some maneuvering, and, there's a lot of things that are happening to try to max out the LTIR. What is Cole Perfetti? How is he going to factor in? Is that rule going to pass for him to be playing in the American League potentially if he doesn't make the Jets? Also too, we have to remember, yes, Logan Stanley is locked in on a number where it was probably a little bit lower than we anticipated. No, he wasn't a big point producer, but at $900,000, that gives the Jets some strong wiggle room there. But it's important for Logan Stanley to have just as important offseason as he had last year, this year, because there's two guys we know, Huss, that were knocking on the door already that want to be in the NHL. So Logan Stanley, and I think he will be ready, but he's going to have to be ready for a challenge from guys like Ville Heinola and Dylan Samberg, who, right now looks like they're on the Manitoba Moose. But as we know, any team that wants to go deep, Huss, you're going 8, 9, 10 defensemen deep. So to have those guys now in reserve rather than, squeezing 3 of them in the top 6, that's a bit more of a luxury for Paul Maurice than what he's maybe had in years prior.
Just quickly on that before we move off the blue line, Ken, because of the way the Jet blue line looks right now, as well as the term on the contracts of at least the top 5, how much greater do you think the chance that either a Heinola or a Samberg is traded? I would imagine it would be more probably in and around the deadline. Because listen, if you're looking to add big pieces, and the Jets with their cap situation wouldn't, I think, be able to do it until later on in the year, and obviously there's a lot of things would affect that. Those are a couple pretty nice chips that would maybe be able to make a real significant trade at this point. I mean, it's not like they're looking to get rid of their prospects, but I think the situation the team is and what they've been able to do up until that point might dictate as to how much Kevin Cheveldayoff would consider a move involving one of those two players.
Yeah, for sure, Huss. I mean, we're always looking into the future. The crystal ball always a little bit cloudy. But as you mentioned, I mean, if this is a team that, if they can get back to that 17, 18 level where they're battling, let's use Colorado as Nashville. If there's a battle for the President's Trophy or the Central Division title, and there's a chance to push the team over the top, will the Jets have to consider moving one of their, prime defenseman prospects? I think they would. I mean, I'm not saying they're not openly shopping these guys, because these are guys they still feel are, can have a potentially a big part of their future. I mean, this is not a knock on Samberg, but especially Heinola. He's a guy that has a lot of skill to play in the top 4 for a team. Dylan Samberg is kind of more along the lines of a Brendan Dillon type of player, a defense first player, but he has some offensive upside. He has some mobility, and he has some mean and some toughness and that mean streak in him. So these are prime chips and prime assets. Again, the Jets, I think, want to keep those assets, but of course they're going to have to consider you're going to have to consider offers going into the year, because as you mentioned, these are guys, and also DeMello too, that he was not claimed. I mean, these are guys that have 3 and 4 years left on their deals. So either those young guys have to go out and be better than the players on those long-term deals, or there is a potential for them to be moved. And the other part of that equation, Huss, too, is, the progression of a guy like a Declan Chisholm on that left-hand side last year with all that great skating ability. Had a chance to watch him before he was injured. I mean, the fact that they were able to hit on a guy like that in the 5th round, I mean, that gives him a little bit more, maybe openness to some other deals. But, I mean, hey, we've talked about him a lot. Ville Heinola is probably ready to be in the NHL right now, but right now it looks like he's going to have to wait a little bit longer. So that's not optimal if you're Ville Heinola, but it's not a sprint. This is a marathon for a guy like him. This is a guy that's going to have a long and probably very successful NHL career. The best way to deal with potential disappointment of not being in the NHL right now is dominating at the American Hockey League level and forcing your way onto the team. Now, and I understand the reluctance of some fans saying, well, Paul Maurice will never put him on the team. That's not true. I mean, when he's ready to be on the team, he's going to have a chance, and he's going to be on the team, whether it's with the Jets or with someone else. But it'll be super interesting, Johnny Kovacevic signing. I mean, I think he's a guy that, Huss, we talked about the cap situation. I mean, Kovacevic might have a chance to be in the mix for the number 7 job, depending on how the way things shake down, potentially with the Nathan Beaulieu, going into camp and how close they can get on that LTIR
Where's
front.
Niku? Where's Niku in all of that?
I don't see Sami Niku I mean, again, his cap number fits, but I still see, whether this is, of course the Jets are trying to get an asset for Sami Niku. We know he's been, openly available. Is a team going to step up? Maybe some team has an injury, like, last year with what happened with the Oilers. Maybe somebody gets hurt in the offseason or in training camp. I mean, we talk about Seattle. I mean, Seattle seems like a place where, they don't have a very loaded right side. It's probably a bit of a staring contest right now with Ron Francis and Kevin Cheveldayoff. And, Cheveldayoff wants this, and Francis is like, well, I'm just going to get him on waivers because you're not going to have him on the team. You know what I mean? It's one of those things where both sides are trying to find a happy medium, but I don't see Sami Niku and the Winnipeg Jets having there's no divorce yet, but I would say they're definitely in a separation situation. And I think it's a pending divorce now, whether that's a trade or waivers or, whatever, if he eventually goes back and plays in Europe, I don't know. But I think that Sami Niku will get a chance somewhere, whether he becomes, a Julius Honka situation where, but without the first round pedigree, we know he has some offensive ability. He has some skating ability. He's got some vision. But I just think a clean break is probably best for both sides.
Ken, one more in defense. I lied. Opening day of the season.
Yep. Where's
Nate Beaulieu? Is he on the roster? Is he elsewhere? And how do we get to that point, do you think?
Yeah, we know Paul Maurice thinks very highly of Nate Beaulieu. We know he's a very valued teammate, very popular among his teammates. He's willing to do all the dirty work, stand up for his teammates and everything else. He's had a terrible run of luck when it comes to injuries. I think that right now, Nate Beaulieu is in the Matthew Perreault situation, that unless there is a trade to be made, Nate Beaulieu is probably looking at a waiver situation going into the opening day roster in terms of trying to max out the LTIR. Does he get assigned to the Moose like Andre Pavlik and stay there? I don't know. I mean, if that's the case, it only counts $125,000 against the cap for the Jets, but we know the Jets would love to find a way to have Nate Beaulieu around and to be that number 7 guy you can plug into the lineup. But I don't know if that's financially going to be possible with, like we said, the salary cap gymnastics they're going to have to be going through. It depends on the health and all of those other things. But
it's crazy to think about, Ken. But I mean, I think honestly, like, this conversation is different because he's making 1.25
right
than if he's making 750 or 850. And in the big picture, it doesn't seem like much. But that's basically where the Jets are when it comes to counting every dollar to get under that number.
Yeah, it's so interesting, Hassan. As you mentioned, I mean, Nate Beaulieu, the consummate team guy, the Jets thought they were doing him a solid by giving him, the 2-year deal was, something to do with Seattle, of course. You wanted to have the player under contract. They thought they were doing him a solid by offering him a little bit more money, whereas now Nate Beaulieu is probably thinking, I would much rather be making $750 because then I would be in the NHL as a guarantee, right? I mean, yes, of course, everyone wants to make $500,000 more if they can, but if that means that now you're stuck in the American League potentially instead of being in the NHL, of course you'd love to. This would be a great situation for the NFL. This contract would be ripped up. Nate Beaulieu would be the first to sign at $750, but that's just not going to be possible. So, I mean, there's other things too. We know the leadership side and, maybe there's a team that needs to get to the floor or whatever else. I mean, high character players get opportunities, especially when they're first round draft picks. So, but again, this isn't necessarily to say that Nate Beaulieu's time with the Winnipeg Jets is done, but you're right, Huss. Right now, the numbers don't add up to it looking like Nate Beaulieu can be carried as the 7th defenseman coming out of training camp. But that depends on how he plays and all these other things. And if someone else gets hurt. So, I think it would be premature to be, running him out of the league or saying he's going to definitely be with the Moose, but that is definitely going to be a possibility if they can't find a way to make the finances work. But as we mentioned, Paul Maurice loves Nate Beaulieu, and if they can find a way to have him on the roster, I think he would be the first choice to be the 7th defenseman. But whether that's going to be financially feasible or not, that I can't tell you on August 18th.
Yeah, I mean, if there's anything going in Sami Niku's favor, it's the 750.
725 even.
Or 725, excuse me, beside the number. So, and it's crazy to think, but, right now, even coming off everything that the organization's been through without fans in the building, I mean, we are talking about maybe the tightest cap situation we've seen in 10 years going into season 11 for the Winnipeg Jets. I'll save the Ehlers chat for another time. We've got plenty of time before the upcoming season, before things get in. But Ken, while we're here, can you give us an update on the golf tour? Where have you been? How have things, many folks that, don't get out as often are envious every time they fire up Wiebe's World on Twitter and see you playing another great course. How's it been? And what stood out to you? Any gems that maybe people haven't seen that they should be checking out?
Yeah, Huss, thanks for asking. I mean, man, it's you're right. This is the time of the year where people are, half of them are cheering and half of them are wanting to tell you where to go when it comes to posting of the golf photos. Most people still are at least a little bit happy. So after a slow start to the year, today was my 18th consecutive day of playing, and I had 19 rounds in those 18 days, thanks to 54 holes in 28 hours at Clear Lake last week there. So I played breezy again this week, Huss, and spoke with Corey Johnson. As you mentioned, I mean, the projects on 3 and 6 are coming along incredibly well. They might be open by the end of the week potentially. So great to get out there. Played Pine Ridge this morning. Was out with Sean Reynolds yesterday. We had the first
Rennie sighting. A Rennie sighting this summer.
We had a rare.
He's
been doing a lot of
Sean.
camping. Yeah, he's been doing a lot of camping. And I even got back to the the old home course. Played Southwood on the weekend as well. And I mean, the one thing with the weather, I mean, we know that it had been a challenge for some courses, but the rain that we had last week just really spruced up a lot of the courses that I've been at. And even in the times where the rain was tough with the drought, the greens were exceptional in a lot of places. I mean, Falcon is in just absolutely fabulous shape. Even got up to Granite Hills. I mean, as you know, the boys are headed up for the MGI this weekend. So almost every course that I played on has been absolutely fabulous. It's been a fun summer. A couple courses I'd never played before. I played Netley Creek for the first time, played Oakwood, even got out to, Scotswood Links, played, Minnewasta. We know Morden's having trouble with the water, but the greens were fantastic at Minnewasta, and Carmen's in great shape. I mean, pretty much every course I played has been pretty much fabulous, Huss.
You ever play Oak Island?
I have. We have discussed this. Yes, it's been a few years now. I got taken out there
by Jeff Paulson. We were going to do a gig. I was doing a gig on Canada Day weekend at Country Fest.
Yeah.
And he said, well, let's go early. We'll play Clear Lake, but let's get up a bit earlier and we'll go and play. And I'd never heard of it.
It's amazing.
Dude, it is. And it's in an area where it's so lightly populated. I think that's the biggest challenge for the course. If they were around more people, I think everyone would know about it. But that's another little gem. Is there another course that maybe people haven't heard of or haven't played that they should make a point of booking off a day, making the drive out and doing that? Rural courses outside the city of Winnipeg, it might take you a little while to get.
No problem. I mean, too, our buddy Robert Lafreniere has a place up at Buffalo Point. Buffalo Point is another one of those great tracks that it's a little bit, for some folks, it's a little bit far. It's kind of like the Hecla of the South, if you will. And I've even got to give a quick shout out to my home course growing up, Oakview Golf Course near Gretna is just in tremendous. It's a 9-hole track. It's in tremendous shape this year, Huss. I played Links of the Lake also this year. It's a nice one up by Gimli. And again, as I mentioned, Netley Creek is a place that I'd never played before. It's a great layout. It's maybe about 45 minutes out of town. And Oakwood's another place that I played a few more times. It's a little bit closer to my place. And as you know, our buddies out from St. Malo, Maplewood's a track that has really come along really nicely in the last couple of years as well. So that's the one thing. We are so blessed in our province, Huss, whether it's Steinbach, Fly-In, Quarry Oak, like there's so many outstanding tracks in Manitoba at such an affordable price point compared to, some of the other provinces. And, one of the few great things about COVID is that the golf industry is thriving, whether that's with memberships or play being up. And it's been fantastic. And, as you know, I mean, summers are a little bit different for hockey writers, especially one in my situation, but NHL goes quiet in August. So if that's the case, we know we're going to be busy in about,
Make the most of it, Ken.
We know there's only going to be 4 weeks before camp. There's always that little tinge of guilt by, when you can't always get out with your buddies, but, golf's such a great sport and it's great to be able to get out with friends. And the other part too, Huss, I know you had a great chat with DB there. I was at the opener. I sat in the seats with a couple of buddies from my hometown, and it was a really interesting and fun experience to be in a place with 30,000 people again. I mean, we saw, you had Nate Schmidt coming from the ballpark, but I mean, as someone who'd covered hockey for basically a year and a half and, all you're used to is piped in noise, it was great to be in a facility where there were actual sounds and the joy that, you talk about the joy with Nate Schmidt. I mean, you saw the joy, what it meant to, everyone knows the story. Almost 30 years, almost 2 years to put a banner up. But people just, it was such a kind of unifying thing to bring the community to, sports can bring people together, and to see the joy on the faces of so many Bomber fans, you know what it meant to them that the moment happened. I mean, we saw it when the parade happened, you know, when Sarah Orleski and I walked the parade route, but this is something that inside the facility, Huss, you were there, like to see the joy on the faces of those Bomber fans, and then to see the joy of people, you're running into people you haven't seen
exactly just
in 2
people.
years. I mean,
What's up?
yeah, exactly. I think Scott Billick described it as Manitoba's biggest social, where if you took a walk around the stadium, you were bound to run into people either in your inner circle or your outer circle, or whether it's a friend from high school or whatever. I thought that was just an absolutely fabulous moment. And it was fun to hear those things. Like, you know, anyone who's gotten into sports, you're a sports fan if you got into sports, you know, journalism of any kind. It was cool to be part of, you know, seeing that unfold in front of you. And it, elicited a lot of emotions from a lot of people. And it gives me great excitement to potentially be going back into a situation where you're going to have at least partially full, if not full, hockey buildings, you know, provided things continue to stay under control with COVID. And let's be real, like what Nate Schmidt talked about. I mean, games in an empty arena are better than no games at all, but there's nothing like the feeling of being in a building when it's electric. I mean, we've talked about this a lot. I happen to be fortunate enough to be at the bat flip game in Toronto on a way home from a Jets road trip. I mean, that's something where I'd love to feel 45,000 people going absolutely bonkers, right? Never mind the Nate Schmidt celly after making that catch in front of 15,000. The sound in that, I've been at a lot of cool events, a lot of cool things, you know, great, you know, the Diggs touchdown, unbelievable. I was in the building in Minnesota for that, but the bat flip game, the sound that it made off the bat, and then the roar of the 45,000, that's something that I'll never forget. I mean, you and I were at Kansas City for Game 6, which was also bonkers. You know, obviously Game 7 didn't go as well, but you got your celly the year later. But that's something that is so beautiful about sports. It's tough to articulate, but it's so special to be involved, whether you're watching on TV or not. But there's nothing like being in person for events like that. And I think it's going to be another great thing about what's going to be happening, you know, whether it's in the CFL this summer or in the fall in the NHL.
There's nothing that brings our communities together like sports and entertainment. I mean, those are the big crowds, and we've missed it a lot. Kenny, this has been great. I have to take one on me. I do have another question. It's actually now a two-parter from someone coming in. I meant to lead off with this question, but then we got talking about Nate Schmidt just because of the way it is.
Yeah.
What's the latest on Evgeny Svechnikov to the Jets? You talked about that, and we don't have to go too much onto this, but I know Carrie in chat was wondering, like, what about the backup goalie situation? The backup goalie situation is Eric Comrie's to lose, I'd imagine, and if it doesn't go well, they figure something out on the waiver wire. But I mean, that's what they have to spend at backup goalie, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Eric Comrie will be given the opportunity to win the job. And what I have been telling people, about this, who had heard of Laurent Brossoit? How many people outside of serious hardcore hockey fans had heard of Laurent Brossoit before he was signed to that one-way contract 3 years ago by the Winnipeg Jets? So we know who Eric Comrie is. He was a highly touted prospect. Yes. And this is not a knock on Brossoit, who came in and did an excellent job as the backup and really boosted his stock and has landed in a great spot with the Vegas Golden Knights. But it's an opportunity for Eric Comrie. Some people say, well, he hasn't been able to steal the job yet. Well, he's never had the opportunity to have the inside track on the job. The only other time he would have maybe potentially had the job is if he had stolen it from Laurent Brossoit when Brossoit got here. So we know that Comrie's been, an above average to, bordering on at times an elite goalie at the American League level. Can that translate into the NHL level? We're about to find out. We know Connor Hellebuyck is going to get 62-ish starts, let's say 60 to 64. Can Eric Comrie give the Jets 20 games and 12 to 14 wins? Well, we're going to find out. And as you mentioned, he's earned the opportunity to do so based on his work. If he can't handle the job, he's not going to hang on to the job, but he's earned the opportunity to have the confidence instilled in him to go out and say, show me you can do the job. And that's what he's going to try to do. When it comes to Svechnikov, I think, this is just a situation, to me, at least this is my outward thought on this. I think we know there's mutual interest, which is what I reported. I think he'd be a great kind of, low risk kind of potentially high reward kind of, I wouldn't call it a gamble. This is a guy who was drafted, 19th overall in 2015, I believe. The Jets had interest at the time. I had Svechnikov in my mock draft at 17 as one of my Twitter followers. We always talk about keeping the receipts. Well, somebody kept the receipts and was quick to say, well, glad this didn't happen. Well, nobody thought Kyle Connor was dropping to the Jets at 17. So Svechnikov, coming off 2 32-goal seasons with the Cape Breton Screaming Eagles, would have looked like a great addition at the time. But
he played with Dubois too, didn't he?
Say again? He did play with Dubois. I think they played on a line together, at least for some of that time. So Svechnikov, left shot, who plays the right side, twofold for me, Huss. Christian Vesalainen, insurance, and also and the insurance part, I say, is because Vesalainen hasn't played a lot on his offside. And secondarily, he has chemistry with David Gustafsson on his left side, with Gustafsson at center. So I think it's twofold. You could see Svechnikov potentially with Lowry and Kopp, or whatever formula they have. I know some people have been saying, well, he played with Dubois before, maybe he'll play with him again. I don't see that, at least out of the gate. It gives you some insurance. I would think it would be a league minimum deal. And what's the holdup? Everyone's saying, well, here's the holdup. Kevin Cheveldaev is probably saying, either I need you to take a two-way deal, or I can only offer you $750. And the agent is probably thinking, well, $750 is a nice backup plan, but I still have a month to figure out, or a couple of weeks to figure out if I can get something better on a one-way ticket. So that is probably, to me, that's what the holdup is, if there is a holdup at all. But that's sort of how I view that situation. So I do think it would be a low-risk move. That would be a smart move. Some folks have pointed out he had pretty decent defensive metrics, but this is a guy that can score. I mean, heavy shot, known, big frame, and has some skill, but it just hasn't translated at the NHL level yet. But a guy that could bring, has definitely some potential to grow. And he was a very good American League player, very good junior player, and maybe a change of scenery and change of, stylistic system might do him some good. And one other thing else, that, a 1 year anniversary of the Dale Hawerchuk passing, great news with what was coming out from last week, whether it's the Ducky Pond Hockey Classic, and to see the statue go up. Anyone who watched the Jets in the 80s, I think that's probably going to be a pretty cool moment, and nice touch to have Dale Hawerchuk Way around by the arena as well. And we've talked about this before. I mean, Dale's a guy that I was fortunate enough to talk to on several occasions because of his relationship with Mark Scheifele. But that was always one of those situations where you wish you had made that call earlier. You know what I mean? You never wanted to bother him because you knew he was busy. But this is a guy that loved hockey, loved talking about hockey. He could not have been more proud of the development Mark Scheifele had made, whether that was when he was still in junior, or at the World Juniors, or at the World Championship, or becoming an elite level NHLer. Obviously, that was a very sad day and continues to be, but the fact that he's being honored in that way is great. And one other thing too, I mean, on the weekend, it was the 10-year anniversary of Rick Rippon's passing. Obviously, there's been some great things happening around the NHL, and specifically in Manitoba on the Project 11 kind of stuff. But I think it was important to shout that out as well, Huss. I mean, I was fortunate. I was there for Rick Rippon's first game when he joined the Manitoba Moose. I can vividly remember the happiness in Rick Rippon's voice on that July 1st call after he had signed with the Jets, after being with Vancouver. We knew there had been some challenges, but this was it. I'll always remember the sound of his voice. And I'm going to tell you right now that there was so much emotion. Talking about emotion, I mean, there was tons of emotion for that first game back. When Rick Rippon's mother dropped the puck for game one, that is something that I'll always remember. And that was something too, where, not to make this about me because it's not, but I wrote an open letter to Rick's mom in the paper for the Winnipeg Sun the next day, because it moved me. It was something that was very emotional, and it was something that I wanted to share because Rick was a really good person, and I'm glad to see that there is still a legacy there. And I think Rick would be so incredibly proud of the work that is being done on the mental health and wellness side of things long after his passing here.
Very well said, Ken, on Rick, on Dale, and everything else we talked about. Man, it had been too long. It was great to have you back on the program. You had a lot fired up for us today. This is phenomenal.
Well, thanks for having me, Huss. And again, when I saw that you had me, pushed a little bit back for Nate Schmidt, I knew I had to have the high energy coming because, it's hard to try to reach that Nate Schmidt level, but I tried my best to get up there, and I haven't been able to tell anybody wake up for quite a few weeks here. So I was fired up to go, and it's always great to talk to you, and look forward to our next visit as well, Huss.
And as always, hundreds of birthday wishes coming in the chat for you as well, Ken. So I hope you have a great night tonight. As always, make the most of it. Hey, buddy, let's do this again soon. All the best. Hit them straight.
Cheers, buddy. Take care. Thanks.
There he is, Ken Wiebe, our great friend. You can follow him on Twitter at Wiebe's World. Most of it right now is shots from golf courses around the province, but he has had some Jets nuggets as well, including that report of mutual interest between the Jets and free agent Evgeny Svechnikov. Man, what a great show this has been. Big thanks to Darrin Bauming, who joined us first. And then, the conversation with Nate Schmidt was phenomenal. Ken Wiebe was bringing it today. Let's get Michael Remis back in here. We do have a couple things to get to before we're finished. And we are somewhat up against it because we do want to get these podcasts out. Remo, Kenny really did bring it. The energy level of Wiebe was as high as it's been in a long time. And I think everyone feels a little bit more juice after they've just heard Nate Schmidt talking about the upcoming season.
Yeah, Nate Schmidt was awesome. Good to know that Nate Schmidt is like every one of us who keeps the N64 at the cottage and puts it in a bag and takes it on the road. I'm curious what character he's into. You can tell a lot about a person by which Mario Kart character they're in. Is he a Yoshi guy? Is he DK, Wario, Mario, Luigi? I'm not sure, but I think all valid questions, but also great that he was at a Twins game. And it was funny, we were talking
for him to take 20 minutes from the ballpark to go and do that was, listen, I'm very impressed with Nate. We were excited to talk to him, and he absolutely brought it. Can't wait to, as he said, hopefully do it in person at some point next season when he gets to Winnipeg.
We'll stream Mario Kart. That's the plan.
All right. The one thing, listen, I could have spent the first hour Barry Horowitz and myself for my performance at Assiniboia Downs last night, but as I tweeted out last night, I did have the biggest win yet, personally, in our season in the duel with the Downs. Last night, my 1-4-5 triactor in race number 5, so $1 bet, 6 ways, so $6 in total, came in and paid $129. So that was the biggest one. I actually had a couple other wins. I am heating up right now, right when I need it to try to make a bit of a push to catch Remis after his great start this year. We've got another full slate of live racing tonight at Assiniboia Downs, 7:30 start. If you want far better picks than ours, tune in to Assiniboia Downs live on their YouTube channel at 6:45. Kirk and Stretch will give you all the info and 411 on what's coming up tonight. And they'll as well give you updates throughout the evening in between races. So if you're not at the track, the YouTube channel is a great way to be a part of the action at Assiniboia Downs. And you can bet at hpibet.com with all of your selections. Remo, I am on a heater. I will start it off. Here are my picks for tonight. Starting it off in race 1. Race 1, this is a weird one where none of the horses have raced, I don't think, at all this year, except for a couple. So it's sort of a wide open race. I'm going to go with Lucky Chucky, horse number 5 to win. We'll throw a toonie on that for a win. We're going to get a little bit more serious in race number 2. Had that 1-4-5 triactor that was the winner yesterday. We're going right back to those same numbers for race number 2. We're taking Tiger by his tail. We're taking Bucky's pick. I had to have Bucky's pick. Shout out to Connor Hellebuck. And life's been good so far. So 1, 4, and 5 in race number 2. We'll do that same $1 tractor box. It's a $6 bet. Couple Quinellas coming up. Race number 3, we're going to go with 1, 6. Candy Giant. We spent a lot of time talking Candy Giant over the last couple years. Hasn't been as banner of a season for Candy Giant, but I like the chances for the Giant to get back in, at least in the top 2. And I'm going to pair Candy Giant up with Tap Master, number 6, for a 1-6 Quinella in number 3. Going to race number 4, we're going to do another Quinella, and we're going to take horse number 7. I believe it's the favorite right now, Orange Theory, as well as a more longer shot, Reasonable Cause, which is horse number 5. So a 5-7 Quinella in race number 4. And then we're finishing it off with another Triactor, $1 Triactor wheel, $6 bet. This is a bigger race. There's 8 horses in it. We are going to go with horse number 2, West Princess. Horse number 3, Camano Comet, coming off back-to-back wins, and pairing it up with horse number 8, NJ's Brass. So a 3, 2, 8 Triactor for race number 5. And if I hit any winners, maybe we'll get a little touch on 6 and 7 if I have time to pay attention to that during my fantasy auction. Remo, what do you got for us for tonight?
Yeah, I've got a bit of a lead, a small lead, but it's dwindling with my performance and your big win the other day, being yesterday, last night. Let's go race 4. I'm on the later ones here. Horse 4, Maybella to win. I've bet on that horse before, and it has worked out for me. So I like that I have the familiarity. I feel like I know the horses. Race 5, I'm also in a Triactor box here. I'm on 3, 5, and 8. Is that the same as yours? I know you had Camano Comment. I'm not sure.
No, I went 3, 2, and 8. I know 3, 5, and 8 are the. I find that the program picks usually 2 of the 3 come in. So my new thing is finding one of the longer shots that might sneak in and bounce someone out. So that's where I'm at.
There you go. And then I am on race 6. Horse 7 to win, Top of the Rock. Hopefully they're top of the standings after that one. And then race 7. What do I have? Horse 1, Hidden Dreams to show. That's a $4 bet. So
excellent. So there you have it.
Those
folks.
are my picks. Yeah.
HPIBet.com. We'll let you know how we do tomorrow. And again, whether you're going out to the track, of course, VLTs and the restaurant are open from 9 a.m. until 12:15. And you will need proof of vaccination for the 50% on the lower level, where you can be outside, you can be inside. Should be a great night again tonight at Assiniboia Downs. All right. Before we go, a couple things. Women's Worlds is getting going. We got preliminary pre-tournament action happening tonight out in Calgary. We talked about the Jays a little earlier. Real tough without George Springer. He has been so important and so valuable to the team when he's been in, but man, he's been hurt a lot. Certainly need him. Jays teeing off right about now, actually. Teeing off. I keep saying that. We're thinking too much golf. First pitch happening just about right away. And, with all the kicking discussions here in Winnipeg, I know the name Liram Hajrullahu came up quite a bit, Remis, but it sounds like he's getting more opportunity in the National Football League, signing with the Dallas Cowboys.
Yeah, Greg.
Not the first CFL kicker to end up in Big D.
No, Greg Zerline, Greg the Leg, who's been really consistent over the last couple of years. He's heard bring in Liram. Let's see if he can stick. He's been gunning for that NFL job for a long time. So, we wish him all the best. And that was a name, it's always interesting when you hear, former CFL names being tweeted by the big NFL insiders. Tom Pelissero were tweeting out that one.
Do we want to talk about German Marquez and his incredibly gutsy performance yesterday in the major leagues?
Should we bring it up? Yeah, we might as well. You kind of just did. So, did I show the tweet?
Yeah, you may as well, and I'll read it out for the podcast listeners. This is what commitment is like. This is from Thomas Harding. Rockies manager Bud Black said right-handed pitcher German Marquez was sick. Diarrhea, to be exact. He held the Padres through one hit for the first 6 innings, fade in the 7th, but also drove in a couple runs in the win. Can you imagine how nervous you would be on the mound with all those cameras and thousands of people watching you if you're on the verge of a breach?
I mean, credit to them for coming out and saying what it was. Don't want to.
Was it a
anything...
lower body injury?
Yeah.
Lower body issue?
They said, hey, man, I mean, look, everyone has diarrhea. Everyone's dealt with it. And credit to Bud Black for being honest. And credit to German Marquez. I had him on my fantasy team. So I needed those innings. I needed that, that one-hit performance.
He gutted it through for you.
Yeah, I needed the gutsy performance. But well done. I mean, it's tough. I mean, they're baseball players. They're just like us going through everyday things. And he pitched through it. I mean, we all remember Luongo. Missing the start of overtime. Lamar Jackson famously running to the washroom during many. I don't think they ever announced that he had, but I think it was pretty obvious by the way he was running. So, I mean, look, there's no shame in having diarrhea, Huss, and credit to Bud Black for letting it be known.
You got it. Yanni Gourde, we saw the poutine in the Stanley Cup earlier this week with Matthew Joseph. Yanni Gourde is now on to Seattle getting his day with the cup, and pretty cool to see that that French taffy being made out of it. Just another day in the life of the Stanley Cup. No inanimate object has a more interesting life than the cup. And here, if you're watching on YouTube, here it is. It looks like Randy Gord and his girlfriend or wife or fiance, who is far better at doing this than he is.
Yeah, she was pro.
She was ready to go for a while. Then they do it. Oh, a little taffy cheers as well. Nicely done. Probably a wild summer for him, knowing that you're celebrating another Stanley Cup championship, but going all the way across the continent to play for the NHL's newest team.
Yeah, I'm not familiar with this French taffy, but it looks like they pour some stuff on it, ice, and then they scoop it up with
syrup.
a stick. Yeah,
I think essentially it's like pure maple syrup, if I'm not mistaken. If someone in the chat might know the no doubt the amount of crap people have eaten out of that cup.
It gets cleaned.
It has to be. Yeah,
they do a good job. Keeper of the cup. I'm sure it's sanitary.
Right. You know what? The other topic we were going to hit today, and you can can that video now, just so we don't have to keep hearing it.
Oh, sorry. Is people hearing that?
SoFi Stadium, this new $1 billion stadium, homes and Rams and Chargers, is getting absolutely nuked right now online because for maybe the most exorbitant fees in sports, from the looks of it, it's like the Fire Fest of stadium food, Reem. Some of the worst looking stadium food I've ever seen coming out of this place. I mean, I saw a piece of pizza that I wouldn't have looked twice at. It was apparently $15. Poor fans of California. They've been through a lot, and now they're being extorted even more by the owners of the Rams, I guess, to start. And we'll even include the Chargers there, even though they are a secondary tenant.
Here, it's Darrin Rovell tweeting. This is a $15 slice of pepperoni pizza.
Really?
That $15, there's 4 pepperonis.
US,
on
it's
there.
like $20 Canadian.
That is insane. And I think we got to give credit to Arthur Blank, owner of the Atlanta Falcons, for how they've handled their stadium food. We've talked about it before. Charge less and people will buy more. And how many $15 pepperoni slices that look like that are, I mean, if you're buying $15, you better be getting a whole pizza. I don't know why when teams decide they can just charge whatever the hell they want and people will pay no matter what. I think
at a certain point, we're getting to the end of the road. I think Rams fans will be eating before they go into the game if that's what they're getting for $15. Listen, we do need to get out, though. I always get brain damage when the podcast is up late, and usually if it's up late, that means we've gone very long. But we do have to thank Darrin Bauming for joining us. Awesome conversation with Nate Schmidt from Target Field, where he was at the Twins game. If you missed that, make sure to back it up on the YouTube or check it on the podcast. And some great Jets talk with Ken Wiebe. It was great to have him back on the program. As always, big shout out to our sponsors, Royal Sports, the Nick and Nicky DQ Group, Canadian Club, Paramount Services Limited, Not Autocorp, Boston Pizza, Aikens Lake Wilderness Lodge, Little Brown Jug, Breezy Bend Golf and Country Club, and Cool Bet Canada. Folks, another big show coming up tomorrow. We'll get ready for the week in the Canadian Football League with Marshall Ferguson, and we'll welcome back to the program Andrew Kopp after he signed his one-year deal with the Winnipeg Jets last week. Thanks to the guests. Thanks to all of you for being a part of the day. Spread the word. Make sure you're subscribed with us here on Winnipeg Sports Talk on YouTube, and we'll see you tomorrow at 1 p.m. right here on your daily sports fix in Peg City, WST Daily. Have a great night.
Oh my God! Oh! Shut it down! Let's go home!
Thanks for tuning in to Winnipeg Sports Talk Daily. Make sure to subscribe on YouTube and your favorite podcast feed at winnipegsportstalk.com.